Chapter 780. On the campus of Hidden Dragon High School. When Xingtian's face was pale and his body was thin, only his eyes were filled with an inexplicable brilliance and pride. My students, 42 talented youths, are about to go to the ruins. My brother has done such an earth-shattering thing for the sake of our brotherhood. This is my pride. They are all worthy of my pride for the rest of my life. In the later half of my life, I will have material to brag about. Therefore, I can't lose face for my brother. If there is a time when Xingtian, am needed, I will not hesitate to offer my loyal heart and pure blood. In this life, I have no more regrets and will never betray this kindness. In this life, I will never tarnish this glory of my brother. Everyone in our class is here. Everyone is here. Follow me. When Xingtian took the lead and walked, even though he had not recovered from his serious injuries, his body was still as straight as a sword. The group of people came to the sports field. There were already a few selected students waiting here. They went to the infant transformation group. The total number of people was close to 300. After a while, the scheduled people all arrived. There were 3 teams. Led by Zhang Xiaofei, 8 teachers were protecting them. When Xingtian and the others were injured, so they did not have the chance to participate in this escort. Thank you for your guidance, teacher. Under the leadership of Zhuoxiao Duo, the 42 students of Class 1 bowed at the same time. When Xingtian stood upright and accepted the bow. Safety is the most important thing in all things. I will wait for you to return safely. When Xingtian's voice was slightly hoarse. If you encounter that kind of choice between opportunity and life, remember, choose life first. Yes, teacher. Let's go. The other classes also bid farewell to their teachers. With a single command, the 300 students of the Hidden Dragon High School all soared into the sky, transforming into a gust of morning wind as they flew into the sky. Starlight Mountains. This time, it was completely different from before. It was as if its appearance had changed completely. The surrounding mountains had all disappeared at this moment, and there was only flat land as far as the eye could see. It was like a huge plain. Only under the golden door in the sky, there was a big lake with rippling blue waves. It was created by the Flood Witch's hammer that day. At this moment, the scenery was actually very beautiful. Looking at it made one feel relaxed and happy. As the agreed date approached, the various experts arrived one after another. Those who arrived earlier had already settled into the tents that had already been set up. The military experts were the first to arrive. At this moment, the voices of high-ranking military officials could be heard from almost every direction. The Gui Xian experts were already prepared and lined up neatly to receive instructions. The Royal God Realm Masters were almost done as well. There were not enough cloud transformation teams, and more were still coming. The 4 great commanders had already returned to their respective territories. But here, there were still many higher-ups. The left and right heavenly kings, Emperor Zhai Xing, and the others were all on the mountain peak, guarding against unexpected changes and responding to unexpected needs. 3 of the 7 swords of the Dao League were also present. 3 of the 11 great shamans also stayed, the Flood Witch, Jin Lin Great Shaman, and the Wind Emperor Great Shaman. The others were all driven back by the Flood Witch. By right, the Great Flood Witch himself could have completely ignored the matters here, but for some unknown reason, he stayed behind. But he also stayed to care about the matters. Everything was negotiated and handled by Jin Lin and the Wind Emperor. The sky had just brightened when a biting cold wind suddenly blew from the horizon. It almost made people think that the Ice Underworld Great Shaman had returned. In the direction of Fenghai City, a slim white figure was flying in the air. With her arrival, it seemed that the morning sun on the horizon had lost its color. Boundless cold air suddenly enveloped the entire gathering place. It wasn't until she landed and retracted her aura that the extremely cold air stopped spreading. However, when everyone saw her face and figure, they still felt that she was extremely cold, pure, and unsullied. Their eyes were filled with the feeling that it was too cold to stand at the top. It was Zhuoxiaoyan who had arrived. Her appearance, which she thought was very normal, stunned everyone. Countless people were looking at her and gasping in amazement. Over at the Nine Heavens Pavilion side, someone had already waved and greeted Lord Spiritual Cat. Among the cloud transformation realm cultivators from the Nine Heavens Pavilion, Zhuoxiaonian was fully deserving of the title of Big Sister. Everyone stood up respectfully to welcome the arrival of their big sister. Zhuoxiaonian saw them before that person spoke. Her body floated and turned in the air, landing in the middle of the crowd. Then her figure disappeared. Many young cultivators nearby could not help but have their eyes lit up. Although it was only a glimpse, it was already engraved in their hearts and souls. It was hard to forget. Who is this? So beautiful. Really too beautiful. I feel like I'm in love. I don't think there's a chance. Too cold. It's lonely at the top, do you know? What do you know? It's only interesting like this. Only then will there be a sense of conquest. Those who had the qualifications to come here were all geniuses from different places. Seeing such an outstanding beauty, there were countless people whose hearts were moved. They all began to inquire about her background. The experts of the Nine Heavens Pavilion looked at these whispering people with pity and disdain in their hearts. Just you bunch of idiots. Wait to be frozen. If this Lord Spiritual Cat was so easy to get in touch with, would you guys even have a chance? Wouldn't our Nine Heavens Pavilion be the most elite group of people in the entire Yanwu Empire? We can tell you very responsibly that we have never seen this spiritual thought heavenly lady smile in such a long time. As for those who had returned to Mystic Realm, or rather, those who had some years of experience in the martial world, they all closed their eyes and sat calmly. They did not think, look, or inquire. It was as if they did not care about the arrival of such a beauty like the Zhuoxiaonian. However, they all remembered her. To be able to come this far, these people already knew very well that if such a woman had a home, it would definitely be a ruthless character that they could not afford to offend. If she did not have a home, then those who had their eyes on this woman would definitely be those future ruthless characters. In other words, the fact that this woman could maintain such a temperament and aura could only mean one thing. This woman's background was shockingly huge. She was definitely not someone that anyone could afford to offend. The experienced martial artists all understood that this was an earth-shattering whirlpool. Whoever rashly touched it would be smashed into smithereens without any chance of survival. Therefore, they would not have such thoughts. For this kind of woman who was so beautiful that she could easily implicate the entire family, they did not dare to think about or touch her. Only those martial arts schools, departments, or those cloud royal god experts who had reached the required level of cultivation but had yet to reach the required level of experience were flushed with excitement. They were all thinking of ways to inquire about her, in addition to calculating their own wealth, fantasizing about a beautiful future with this beauty and walking to the pinnacle of life. The experienced martial artists all looked down at their noses. A bunch of idiots who had not been beaten up by society. They really thought that they were the main characters. She could not be bothered with them. She would just go and smash her head into a bloody mess. Beautiful women were always resources, and they had to be of high quality. Once a woman's beauty reached a certain level, not only would she be a high-quality resource, she could also be a disaster. If one was not careful, there might be someone who would bring disaster to himself just because he took an extra look at her. There would be no room for him to turn over. And the beauty of this young lady who flew over from the sky was even above the description. As for the whirlpool that she could cause, they could imagine it themselves. The experienced martial artists even dared to say that among the people present today, if any one of them really moved this fairy's heart, then this lucky guy would probably disappear from the face of the earth before the next day. This point, the experienced martial artists could guarantee with their own lives and their descendants that it was absolutely true. The experienced martial artists only remembered Zhuoxiaonian for one purpose. If this woman was in trouble or something, they would help her. They did not dare to think about winning her heart. Their biggest wish was to leave a favor with her. Once such a woman's favor was returned, it might be the biggest opportunity in their lives. This was what the experienced martial artists wanted. The difference between a rash youth and an experienced martial artist was like heaven and earth. This was the real reason why out of 10,000 rash youths, perhaps only 3 to 5 could live to become experienced martial artists. A big lake separated the three sides. The players of the 4 echelons of the Umno Alliance Dao League also entered the arena one after another. At this time, the participants of Yunduan High Martial Arts and Ancestral Dragon High Martial Arts had also arrived. Including Zhou Yunqing, Long Yuxing, Wan Li Xiu, and the others were all stretching their necks to look for Zhuo Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong. When they found out that the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts had not arrived, their faces were full of disappointment. Finally, the wind and clouds surged. The team of the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts had also finally arrived. Zhuo Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong blended in with them, not showing off their abilities. The team of the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts had a total of 400 people. In these few days, Li Chenglong had already come up with a relatively complete secret code communication system. For example, the call for help in a critical moment, or the trace of being chased, how to leave a mark on a rock, how to leave a mark on a tree, how to leave a mark on the ground. On this basis, how to distinguish between one's own people and outsiders. In short, all kinds of contact methods were clearly defined. This is only the contact method of the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts. I believe that the other schools will certainly have their own secret codes. Don't worry about it. When we need help, we can look for them, or they can come to us. But we must remember our own secret codes, and we can't forget them. If my estimation is not wrong, after entering the ruins, it will be difficult to maintain an organization. There is a high chance that everyone will be randomly scattered and fight for themselves. With the secret codes, you can relatively quickly find your own team and regroup. If you can't find your own team for the time being, the nearest team, as long as it is a team from the Astral Souls continent, should immediately join it. When you have the opportunity to find your own team, you can regroup. When you are alone, you must be extra careful. When facing more than 2 enemies, even if there is a great opportunity in front of you, as long as you don't have absolute confidence, try not to take risks as much as possible. Chapter 781. Li Chenglong's rules were extremely detailed, covering all aspects. Our group prioritizes our own safety. The leader's strength is far superior to his peers, so he will naturally support us. But we must have someone who will attack and plunder the resources. The leader's responsibility is the most important. The leader is a bandit, and we are the logistics of the bandit. When Li Chenglong made these rules, Zhuo Xiaoduo was not around. Naturally, he did not know that his leader had been labeled as the #1 bandit in the Hidden Dragon High School by Li Chenglong, the vice leader. After the Hidden Dragon High School arrived, the candidates for the trial were indeed separated. The Transformation Cloud experts were brought to the Transformation Cloud area, while the Royal God experts were brought to another area. There were only 400 infant transformation cultivators left. At this moment, a voice shouted, "Zhuo Xiaoduo, Li Chenglong, are you here?" Not far away, a little fatty was looking in their direction. "Here." Li Chenglong stood up and waved his hand. Zhuo Xiaoduo laughed, "Fatty, come here." In the Hidden Dragon High School team, Yuyen Air bit her rosy lips. That damned fatty actually came? Last time, it was this bastard who dragged me to sleep in the arena. Li Zhongming laughed. "I'm here, I've finally found you." He ran over. Zhuo Xiaoduo was about to go out and greet them when he heard 2 voices, "Zhua." Long Yuxing and Wan Li Xiu were laughing and jumping as they ran over. Their faces were filled with a happy expression. In the Yunduan High School team, Zhou Yunqing was full of smiles and waved at Zhuo Xiaoduo. The 5 of them who were also from Phoenix City's #2 high school reunited, and they were all so excited that they were about to explode. Finally, everyone was together again. Long Yuxing squinted at Li Chenglong. "Swollen, what's your cultivation level?" It wasn't just Long Yuxing. Even Wan Li Xiu and Li Zhongming were looking at Li Chenglong with ill intentions. We haven't seen each other for a long time, so of course we have to test each other's skills. Zhuo Xiaoduo is the boss, so we don't feel good about it. Secondly, we're afraid that we won't be able to defeat him. Thirdly, we're even more afraid that we'll be the ones to be taught a lesson. It was better to test Li Chenglong first. If he could easily defeat Li Chenglong, then he would have the confidence to challenge Zhuo Xiaoduo. At that time, who cares if he's the boss or not, I'll beat him up first. In their respective schools, every day was hellish training. Wasn't this the main reason for most of the true meaning behind it? Li Chenglong rolled his eyes and said, "Middle stage nascent soul. What's wrong?" Long Yusheng laughed wildly. He was so excited that his pupils widened. "I am now at the peak of nascent soul. Ha, I haven't seen you for a long time. We must learn from each other later." It was hard to imagine that a person as handsome as Long Yusheng would have a vile expression on his face, completely insufferably arrogant. However, his wife, Wan Lixiu, was also full of joy and high spirits. Even the two of them looked at Zhuo Duo with ill intentions. Li Chenglong is only at the middle stage nascent soul? Zhuo is also in the nascent soul team. At most, he should be at the peak of nascent soul like us, right? Doesn't this mean that Li Zhangming was a little hesitant? He always felt that Li Chenglong was cheating them again. But after hesitating for a long time, he still couldn't resist the temptation of beating Zhuo Duo and Li Chenglong up. He rubbed his fists and said, "Don't cry later. It's embarrassing." Zhuo Duo smiled sinisterly. "We definitely won't cry. Sigh, our progress has been very slow during this time. I'm very ashamed. It's time for you to wake us up. I'm ashamed. He couldn't hold back the evil laughter in his heart. Come to Fenghai Hidden Dragon High School to find Zhuo Duo and Li Chenglong. At this moment, he felt that the faces of the people around him had changed one by one, faintly showing a bit of seriousness. He turned his head and saw two figures walking over from the side of the bay. One of them walked through the crowd like a lone wolf looking for food in the far north wilderness. His whole body was full of a cold, sharp and bloody feeling. It was Yumoyan. His whole body was straight and he walked over like a sword. Beside him, there was a young girl. This young girl, on the other hand, was so beautiful that anyone who looked at her couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity. Yumoyan's face was full of smiles, but even if others saw his smile, they would still subconsciously feel frightened. But he was smiling from the bottom of his heart. Walking in front of Zhuo Duo, Yumoyan didn't show the excitement of meeting after a long time. Instead, he said somewhat calmly, "Zhuo Duo. Long Yusheng, Xiu, Changming." Everyone called his name once and then stopped. But their eyes were already burning with passion. "This is my senior sister, Sister Yen. Well, she's my teacher Luo's daughter. She's very good to me." Yumoyan said straightforwardly, "Boss Zhuo will join your team." Zhuo Duo laughed. "Good. Not bad. Moyan, come and sit. Sister-in-law, come and sit too." Long Yusheng and the others cheered together. "Sister-in-law, come and sit." Sister Yen-er's face suddenly turned red, but she didn't refuse. She went over and sat next to Wan Lixiu. On Yu Yan's dark and thin face, there was a suspicious blush that flashed past, as if he was shy. But he was too dark and used to a poker face. If one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't be able to tell that he was shy. "Yumoyan, we're going to challenge Zhuo and Xiao Duo. Do you want to come?" Long Yusheng urged. "I'm not going." Yu Yan rejected him directly. "Are you scared?" "I'm not scared and I'm not going to fight." Yumoyan's choice to leave so decisively stunned Long Yusheng and the others. They all felt that Yumoyan's personality seemed to be more withdrawn and sharper than when he was in Phoenix City. Then, Zhuo Duo introduced Yumoyan and the others to his school. Under the guidance of Gao Qiaoer, all the Soul Transformation Realm students of the Hidden Dragon High School expressed a warm welcome. Gao Qiaoer's performance was very skillful, making the atmosphere on her side lively and chaotic. Silently, she completed the integration of Long Yusheng and the others. Then, people from the military came over and began to integrate the teams. 3,000 Soul Transformation Realm students were gathered together. The main purpose of this gathering was to introduce everyone's attire. Everyone was wearing the same attire. Those who came from the school were wearing the school uniform. There was a clear symbol on the uniform. Those who came from the military and those who came from the big families all borrowed the military badges and uniforms. The kind that had a soul lock, everyone didn't have to worry about someone impersonating them. After a detailed introduction, someone on the mountain peak ordered, "Get ready to enter." The Astral Souls Alliance entered as the first echelon. From the beginning to the end, Zhuo Duo and the others didn't see what the disciples of the Tao League and the Alliance looked like or wore before they were ordered to enter the ruins. The distance between the three parties was too far. They couldn't even see them from afar. At this moment, the Soul Transformation Realm martial artists of the Alliance who entered the secret realm all received an order, or rather, a warning. If you meet someone from the Astral Souls Alliance named Zhuo Duo, remember to run as far as possible. Don't fight with him. This order made the Soul Transformation Realm martial artists of the Alliance feel dejected. Damn it, I've never seen such a low morale. We haven't even entered yet, but we've already received an order to retreat. Are we that weak? But the higher-ups, Dan Kong, Bing Ming, Lai Hua, and the others were all clear. Don't underestimate them. Every one of them was a genius among geniuses of the new generation of the Alliance. Many of them belonged to the kind of people who were blessed by the heavens and would encounter good things wherever they went. Each of them was suppressed at least 7 or 8 times in their respective realms. But even with this level of cultivation, against Zhuo Duo, he would still be killed or even killed in an instant. Based on this understanding, even though they knew that this order was too demoralizing, they still had to say it. According to the assessment of Zhuo Duo's strength by Flood, Bing Ming, and the other great sorcerers, even if they all gathered together and charged at Zhuo Duo, not many of them would be able to survive. First, the Soul Transformation Realm martial artists from the military entered. Then, the various departments and families entered. Then, the Ancestral Dragon High Martial Arts School mixed with some other high martial arts students to enter the Soul Transformation Realm. Then, the Yunduan High Martial Arts School mixed with some other high martial arts students to enter the Soul Transformation Realm. The Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts School. When the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts School was about to enter, suddenly, a golden light flashed in the sky. A burly figure dressed in golden clothes descended from the sky. He stopped in front of the golden door in the sky. The students immediately stopped and looked at this guy who looked like a super expert. What was he doing? The Heavenly King of the Right was beside the golden door and frowned. Golden-scaled Great Sorcerer, what are you doing? Golden-scaled Great Sorcerer. Below, Zhuo Duo and the others were whispering to each other. At this stage, this was a super big figure who could make one's soul tremble just by hearing his name. He was the strongest person in the 3 continents. Immediately, all of them were filled with reverence. They were truly intimidated by the sight of him. The golden-scaled Great Sorcerer snorted and looked at the group of students from the Hidden Dragon High Martial Arts School. He said lightly, "Who is Zhuo Duo?" Zhuo Duo was suddenly confused. Fuck, am I already so famous? Even the golden-scaled Great Sorcerer, one of the 12 great sorcerers of the Alliance, wanted to pay a special visit to me? I seem to have just been promoted to the Soul Transformation Realm. Isn't he thinking too highly of me? Should I be afraid, horrified, and shocked to death? The King of Zhuolu and the Heavenly King of the Right frowned at the same time and shouted, "Golden-scaled Great Sorcerer, what are you doing?" The golden-scaled Great Sorcerer stood with his hands behind his back and said lightly, "I just want to say a few words to that Zhuo Duo. I have no ill intentions." Words. The golden-scaled Great Sorcerer ignored them and said directly, "Zhuo Duo, come out." Zhuo Duo stepped out of the crowd and asked with his head raised, "May I ask, golden-scaled Great Sorcerer, what advice do you have for me?" The golden-scaled Great Sorcerer snorted and said, "Someone asked me to say a few words to you. Well, this is my big brother, the Flood Witch, who asked me to pass it on to you." The Flood Witch. The Flood Witch who was known to be invincible and recognized as the #1 expert in the universe? Zhuo Duo's expression suddenly turned cold. Chapter 782. He might not take the words of others to heart, but he would definitely take the words of the few great shamans to heart. Especially the Flood Witch's message, he had to take it to heart. He definitely could not afford to offend this person. Also, he seemed to be very curious. I don't know the Flood Witch. What message did he send me? We don't have any friendship. The golden-scaled great shaman on the other side began to transmit his voice. Zhuo Duo only heard the golden-scaled great shaman's voice in his ear. "My elder brother, the Flood Witch, asked me to tell you, you are not allowed to kill the people of the Umno Alliance. Otherwise, he will kill your parents. Your father is Zhuchanglu, right? Your mother is Wu Yuding, right? Hearing this, Zhuxiaoduo's expression changed greatly. The golden-scaled great shaman laughed and leaped up, turning into a golden light in the air and rushing away. Zhuxiaoduo's face was pale, and he was stunned on the spot, not moving for a long time. Yu Donggan shouted angrily, "Golden-scaled great shaman, what the hell did you say?" In the air, the golden-scaled great shaman ignored him and disappeared from the mountain peak. The king of Zhuolu flashed and came to Zhuxiaoduo, asking with concern, "What did he say to you?" Seeing Zhuxiaoduo's hesitation, the king of Zhuolu hurriedly said, "I am the king of Zhuolu. If you have anything to say, tell me, I can make the decision." Zhuxiaoduo took a deep breath and said, "He said," the Flood Witch said, "I can't kill the people of the Umno Alliance. Otherwise, the Flood Witch will kill my parents. And they also said the names of my parents, The king of Zhuolu was dumbfounded. According to his understanding, this sentence was probably really said by the Flood Witch. Then after you go in, try your best to kill as few people as possible and steal as many things as you can. With your strength, you far surpass your peers. If you show some mercy, you will still be able to surpass the others." The king of Zhuolu patted Zhuxiaoduo's shoulder and transmitted his voice. "In the future, there will be a great enemy invading. The 3 continents will work together to resist the enemy. It is still necessary for the 3 forces to keep the geniuses as much as possible. However, for the time being, it is enough for you to keep this matter to yourself. You are not allowed to leak it out. Your strength has already exceeded the limits of your peers. The others do not have the qualifications to know." Zhuxiaoduo felt a chill in his heart and said in a deep voice, "I understand." The king of Zhuolu patted him on the shoulder and said, "However, you don't have to worry too much about Flood's warning. If they start massacring our men, then you don't have to show them any mercy. Just go ahead and kill them. I'll be there for you. I'll be there for you. Go in." Zhuxiaoduo and Li Chenglong led their men into the Golden Gate one by one. Until he entered, Zhuxiaoduo was still thinking about why this king of Zhuolu seemed a little familiar. It was as if he had seen him somewhere before and even talked to him before that. However, before he had time to think about it, he suddenly felt the world spinning around him. His whole body had entered a whirlpool, and there was a strong suction force pulling his body from all sides. Zhuxiaoduo hurriedly gathered his spirit and qi. He immediately activated all his spiritual power to protect his body. However, he still felt dizzy. At this moment, he felt as if he had passed through countless galaxies and galaxies, amidst countless brilliant lights, that his whole body was shot out like a rocket. Zhuxiaoduo's head was in a mess. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. "I've been shot out. At this moment, I think of my father." Li Chenglong and the others were also drawn into different whirlpools from the moment they entered the Golden Gate. Zhuxiaoduo only felt that he was falling from a high altitude. Below him was a land full of vitality and green plants. In his field of vision, there were small rivers, small lakes, small mountains, cliffs, dense forests, mountain ranges. High peaks. That Zhuxiaoduo felt that all of his spirit power had been sealed. He couldn't stay high up in the air and could only fall down like a waterfall. He could faintly see. There seemed to be a pack of wolves below, right? At the place where he fell. Fuck. I can't fall there. My spiritual power is imprisoned now, how can I fight? While he was thinking, he had already fallen with a whistling sound. A miserable howl covered Zhuxiaoduo's scream. The majestic wolf king on the mountain peak was sitting on the wolf's waist by Zhuxiaoduo. As luck would have it, this mountain had directly broken the wolf's waist with a cracking sound. The wolf king was in so much pain that it wanted to die. Its mouth stuck into the ground and howled miserably. Blood flowed out of its 7 orifices as its body was directly split into 2 by Zhuxiaoduo. The wolf's head was on one side and its butt on the other. Zhuxiaoduo was also in so much pain that he wanted to die. He rode on the wolf king's back and howled miserably. Just as he was about to fall on the wolf king's back, the spiritual power in his body was released. Duo immediately circulated his spiritual power to protect his whole body and then retracted it into his abdomen. Then he smashed onto the Wolf King's back. It was not bad that he broke the wolf's waist, but the bones in his butt were almost crushed. After a long while, he grimaced in pain and rolled down from the Wolf King's body. His lips trembled. It's too painful. The Wolf King was already dead. Its waist was split into two by him. How could it not die? Its lifeless eyes looked at the sky, full of grief and indignation. That was it easy for me to be a king. In the end, on the first day after defeating the old Wolf King, when I stood on the mountaintop and lectured my people but fell from the sky and smashed me to death, that was I wronged. The wolves that were being lectured by the new Wolf King were so scared that they ran faster than rabbits. So scary. The Wolf King was smashed to death by a but that fell from the sky. So scary. Sob sob sob. Duo sat there for a full 5 minutes before he finally sat up and rubbed his butt. His face was still twisted. He was very puzzled. Falling like this, was this the first step of the trial? This was clearly harming others. How could he know that this matter was actually due to the Flood Witch's negligence? When one first entered the Crown Prince's Academy, they had to restrain their spiritual power and not resist being teleported. Naturally, nothing would happen. Moreover, there would not be any restrictions on spiritual power. However, the Flood Witch had been here for so many years. It was already good enough that she only remembered the existence of the Crown Prince's Academy. How could she remember these minor details? Therefore, he did not say anything. The Flood Witch, the only one who had entered, did not say anything. Naturally, the others did not know either. As a result, every single person who entered Crown Prince's Academy had to use all of their spiritual energy to protect themselves when they were hit by the terrifying whirlpool. Thus, every single one of them was thrown into disarray. After these people entered, the Flood Witch was meditating on the mountaintop. Suddenly, she felt her body weaken and her luck weaken. What's going on? Why am I being whipped again? The Flood Witch was completely speechless. In the Crown Prince's Academy, Xiaoyan fell from the sky. She was also in a sorry state. However, she was much luckier than Duo. She fell directly into a deep valley covered in ice and snow. In this deep valley, there was a big tree covered in ice and snow. It was covered in icicles, which made the whole tree look transparent. On the branches of this strange tree, there was a crystal-clear bird's nest. A snow-white bird was squatting in the nest, incubating eggs. Xiaoyan fell from the sky and smashed into the body of this ice bird. This ice bird was just like Xiaoduo's Wolf King. It only had time to let out a scream before it was smashed to death by Xiaoyan. However, unlike the Wolf King, Xiaoyan smashed the 3 eggs into a pool of juice. After a slight pause, there was a soft sound, and an extremely cold aura suddenly rose up. It turned into little sparkling and translucent little fairies, circling and dancing in the air. There were at least 30 to 40 of them. With a chirp, a transparent shadow flew out from Xiaoyan's soul's nature sword. It was Ice Spirit. At this moment, Ice Spirit was a little girl the size of a finger. She was flying around excitedly, opening her small mouth and swallowing the little sparkling fairies one by one. After a while, the big bird that had fallen gradually melted and turned into pieces of similar sparkling fairies. Ice Spirit was even more delighted when she saw this. She didn't want to let any of them go. She just waited and ate them all little by little. After swallowing a large amount of sparkling fairies, Ice Spirit, who was still a little weak at first, became energetic in a very short time. Her body also turned from transparent to almost solid. Although it still looked crystal clear, it had become solid. However, most of them had already materialized like crystals and were no longer in the form of smoke and mist, illusory and unreal. Because of the fall, Xiaoyan was still feeling dizzy, but because he had personally witnessed this joyous change, he was overjoyed. Ice Spirit, what is this? How did your condition improve so much? That's great, that's great. Ice Spirit floated in the air, feeling the extremely comfortable temperature in this space. She couldn't help but stretch her arms and legs, and a satisfied expression appeared on her delicate face. Xiaoyan looked at her. She waved her small hand and an ice mirror appeared in front of her. Ice Spirit looked at her own face in the mirror and then looked at Zhu Xiaoyan's face. She pouted as if she wasn't satisfied with her appearance. She didn't know how she did it, but after a burst of mist, she turned her appearance into the same as Zhu Xiaoyan's. She held the mirror and looked at herself again and again. Then she jumped up, seemingly satisfied. She somersaulted lightly and landed on Zhu Xiaoyan's palm. A small body the size of a finger sat cross-legged on Zhu Xiaoyan's palm. She tilted her head and looked at Zhu Xiaoyan, her enlarged self. Zhu Xiaoyan couldn't help but smile warmly. "Oh, Ice Spirit, you've become like me. Ha, you're so beautiful." Ice Spirit somersaulted happily. Zhu Xiaoyan smiled and lowered her head. "Ice Spirit, what's your name? I don't know your name yet." Chapter 783. The Ice Spirit tilted its head and looked at the Zhu Xiaoyan. Looking at the warm smile on her face, it could feel that the girl in front of it was treating it well with all her heart. Perhaps, it was a good choice to have such a master. The Zhu Xiaoyan knew that although the Ice Spirit was intelligent, it couldn't understand her words until it recognized her as its master. She was still very happy. Holding the Ice Spirit in her hands, she smiled happily and said, "That's great. I didn't expect to find something delicious for you the first time I came in. One of the reasons I came in this time was to find an opportunity for you to recover your strength. Your body's condition is too weak." The Zhu Xiaoyan held the Ice Spirit tenderly and put it on her delicate face. She smiled and said, "I will definitely make you healthy and strong as soon as possible." The Ice Spirit felt the sincere concern and looked at the Zhu Xiaoyan without blinking. It didn't hide the doubt in its eyes. The Zhu Xiaoyan said happily, "It's okay. I know these things are good for me too. But you are so weak now. You should eat them first. When you recover, you can accompany me for a long life." Ice Spirit blinked her eyes and felt her heart being tugged at. It looked at the Zhu Xiaoyan's eyes and the sword in the Zhu Xiaoyan's hand. It couldn't help but show a look of disdain. This sword without spirituality was really ugly. But the shape was still pretty. If it tilted its head and thought for a while. Then, it jumped into the Soul Sea's sword and came out again. It tilted its head and looked at the Zhu Xiaoyan for a while, as if it had made an important decision. Suddenly, a bright smile bloomed on the Ice Spirit's face. It was just like the Zhu Xiaoyan's beautiful smile. The two small hands came together and formed a heart shape. Then, an extremely cold energy suddenly burst out. In the heart shape, an extremely bright light appeared and became brighter and brighter. The Zhu Xiaoyan was shocked. She said in surprise, "Ice Spirit, are you going to recognize me as your master?" This was the special phenomenon that Zhu Zhanglu and his wife had mentioned when they were giving pointers about Fays recognizing their masters. Once a spiritual object recognized its master, it would give its all. Not only would it be connected to its master, but it would also follow the master through life and death. He gave up his heart, his spirit, his soul, and everything he had at the moment he recognized the master. He gave it all to the master. Thus, since ancient times, no one had ever been able to force a Fey to recognize a master. Using force, at most, one could only force a Fey to recognize a Fey as its master. It was difficult to force a Fey to live or die with it. Moreover, the Ice Soul was a top-notch high-grade spirit item. In order for it to recognize someone as its master, the Ice Soul had to be willing to recognize someone as its master. If it was unwilling, it wouldn't draw such a heart-shaped shape. The Ice Soul would rather be annihilated than force herself to do anything. Zhu Xiaoyan looked at the heart shape and felt the Ice Spirit's feelings. She was so happy that her heart was about to explode. But she wasn't in a hurry. She sat up straight and said seriously, "Ice Spirit, thank you for recognizing me. I, Zhu Xiaoyan, swear that you will be my closest friend in my life. I will treat you well from now on. I will be one with you and will never abandon you." The Ice Spirit looked at Zhu Xiaoyan with her bright and beautiful eyes. Zhao's hair danced in the cold wind. The light in the heart shape became brighter and brighter. Zhu Xiaoyan stretched out her right hand and pricked her right middle finger with the cat spirit sword. A round drop of blood appeared on her fingertip. "Thank you, Ice Spirit. Thank you for recognizing me," Zhu Xiaoyan said gratefully. The round blood stain on his finger gently dripped into the round heart-shaped object. The blood spread out and then disappeared. The entire heart-shaped object seemed to have been dyed a light red by the drop of blood. With a whoosh, the light flew into Zhuoxiaonian's glabella, and the circle of light shrank as it spun into Ice Spirit's glabella. The Ice Spirit jumped up and down happily. Her petite body spun in circles on Zhuoxiaonian's palm. She was like a little girl who had finished what she wanted to do. Zhuoxiaonian only felt a chill enter his divine sense, and his mind suddenly became clear. Immediately, he felt that an unbreakable and clear connection had been established in his mind. On the other side, it was the voice of a little girl. She was saying, "Hello, hello, hello." Zhuoxiaonian laughed happily. "Hello, hello." Ha. The Ice Spirit got a response. She stopped moving and looked at Zhuoxiaonian with her big eyes. She smiled brightly and even had little dimples. Zhuoxiaonian liked it more and more. He held it in front of him and kissed it, saying, "Shall I give you a name?" "Name? What's a name?" The Ice Spirit was confused. "What's your name?" "I don't have a name." "Then, I'll give you a name. You'll have a name." "Ah, that's great." The Ice Spirit did a somersault happily and sat on Zhuoxiaonian's palm. She rested her chin on her hands and waited for her name. "Your..." Zhuoxiaonian frowned and thought. "Xiao Duo? Xiao Duo Duo? Doggy Duo? Doggy Duo?" None of them seemed right. However, when Zhuoxiaonian came up with a name, she only thought about this aspect. As for other aspects, she did not even consider it. "Little bitch? No. How about Xiao Duo?" Zhuoxiaonian asked carefully. The Ice Spirit blinked and said in her heart, "Xiao Duo. Xiao Duo, Xiao Duo." In Zhuoxiaonian's mind, the Ice Spirit said again and again, "Xiao Duo, Xiao Duo." Finally, the Ice Spirit made a decision excitedly, "I'll be Xiao Duo." Zhuoxiaonian smiled and said happily, "Okay, Xiao Duo." She thought, "From now on I have Xiao Duo Duo, Xiao Duo, Doggy Duo, Xiao Duo." Ha! At this moment, the joy in her heart was indescribable. Ice Soul Xiao Xiao Duo was also very happy at this time. She looked petite and immature, but in fact, she had lived in the world for many years. She was probably older than all the existing human practitioners. At that time, because the Ice Abyss which chose another Ice Soul to accompany her, she had fallen into depravity for countless years and was lonely for a long time. Now, she finally had a companion and a name. The joy in her heart was also indescribable. She turned over and over in Zhuoxiaonian's hand happily. After a long time, she calmed down. In the process of learning from the Ice Spirit, Zhuoxiaonian knew that the ice bird she killed was not a living creature. It was a spiritual creature similar to the Ice Spirit, and it had the attribute of Ice Spirit. However, it didn't have the opportunity to form a complete consciousness, so it couldn't be listed as a spiritual creature. The tree it was in was an ice pith tree. As for the eggs it hatched, they were not eggs, nor were they hatched by the tree. They were the same kind of Ice Spirit essence. They also didn't have the kind of consciousness, but they huddled together and promoted each other. It was a kind of symbiotic relationship. If they could finally form and develop consciousness, maybe after 100,000 years, or maybe after 1,000,000 years, they would transform into Ice Spirits, just like Xiao Duo did countless years ago. This was the only way for the acquired Ice Spirit essence to evolve into Ice Spirits. Zhuoxiaonian's Ice Spirit was an innate Ice Spirit. Its level was much higher than the acquired Ice Spirit essence. Although it was weaker, it had an innate advantage that was why it could swallow the scattered light spots at the first moment, and the Ice Spirit essence didn't resist at all. After eating the Ice Spirit essence, although the Ice Spirit essence didn't recover to its peak, it had recovered half of its strength. It was much better than before. "This is an ice pith tree?" Zhuoxiaonian Duo looked at the tree that she was sitting on. It was completely transparent, and it was dozens of feet tall. Of course, this kind of Ice Spirit essence can only be born on the ice pith tree. The Ice Spirit essence also needs to be nourished by the ice pith tree in order to gradually evolve and develop consciousness. Zhuoxiaonian Duo immediately jumped up and looked at the ice pith tree carefully. This ice essence tree was so thick that it would take 3 people to wrap their arms around it. Its branches were like completely transparent jade, emitting extremely cold air. This is really good stuff. Zhuoxiaoyan Duo jumped down and went to the root of the ice pith tree. She took out the spirit-snatching sword and used her cultivation to dig. Zhuoxiaoyan Duo had to take away such good stuff. What are you doing? Xiao Duo came out of the spirit-snatching sword with dissatisfaction. I'm digging. Zhuoxiaoyan Duo smiled with satisfaction. This is good stuff. It's beneficial to both you and me. How can I not take it? Good stuff? Xiao Duo looked at the ice pith tree disdainfully. In the short term, it is. Then she asked Zhuoxiaoyan Duo to open the space ring. With a wave of her small hand, the whole ice pith tree disappeared. Besides the body of the ice pith tree, the mysterious ice wind and snow at the root also went into the space ring. Zhuoxiaoyan Duo couldn't help but open her eyes wide. Xiao Duo, you're so awesome. Zhuoxiaoyan Duo hugged Xiao Duo and kissed her. Xiao Duo wiped her saliva with disgust. In the world of ice, I am the king. Everything that belongs to ice must listen to my orders. Moving them is just a piece of cake for me. Xiao Duo proudly raised her face that was as beautiful as Zhuoxiaoyan Duo's. This was the only thing that she was not satisfied with. As an innate spirit, her original image was not as beautiful as this face. It was so frustrating and embarrassing. However, it was fortunate that she was now my master. That was equivalent to my face. Hehe, my plan was really good. I've made a profit. I've made a profit both physically and mentally. I see. Then let's continue to look for opportunities. Zhuoxiaoyan Duo was very surprised. She climbed up and looked around. This ice valley was actually a vast land that stretched as far as the eye could see. Chapter 784. As far as the eye could see, it was a world of ice and snow. There was almost no other color. Zhuoxiaoyan floated up with the spirit-snatching sword in her hand and searched all the way forward. Wherever she passed, as long as it was exposed on the surface, it would automatically fly over to her with a wave of her hand that it was so convenient. Zhuoxiaoyan had just entered the Crown Prince Academy, and she had already gained a lot. And the price she had to pay was quite heavy. The Flood Witch's face darkened as she sat at the top of the mountain. She was speechless. Is there no end to this? Xiao Duo shook his butt and rubbed it again and again. For a long time, he was still walking in a figure-8 shape. He had no choice but to do this because his manhood had been severely injured. Fortunately, he had retracted his manhood in time. Otherwise, Big Sister Nian, I would have let you down for the rest of my life. Well, he had heard that when one reached the Skysoar realm, one could reconstruct their body and get a bigger one. Was it too early to say sorry? However, he was able to adapt quickly, so his manhood was still there. It was just a little painful. It didn't affect him at all. This unforeseen event, in addition to the low-level core he had dug out from the head of the Wolf King he had smashed to death, and the inner core he had dug out from the Wolf King's stomach that had been split in half by him, could be considered to have made up for his psychological trauma. He flew up to the sky and looked around. He couldn't help but be shocked. This is just a training ground? This is clearly a world of its own. Zhuoxiao Duo was astonished. Isn't this a little too big? No matter where he looked, he couldn't see the end of it. There were mountains in the distance, and at a glance, it seemed even more magnificent than the Astral Soul's continent. This training ground is so magnificent. There must be a lot of good stuff. The Umno Alliance threatened me with the safety of my parents, so I can't start a massacre. But that doesn't mean I can't take the good stuff. There's no conflict. In any case, it was impossible for him to gather his own team in such a short time. He couldn't contact anyone at all. Zhuoxiao Duo had once roared with all his strength, but there was no response for a long time. Only the silence of the empty mountain and the echoes of his roar could be heard. Instead, it caused many demonic beasts in the distant forest to roar in anger. Damn it! What is it that's screaming here? Disturbing my peace. Xiao Long. Zhuoxiao Duo suddenly thought of his invisible henchman. Come out. Xiao Long wriggled out of the Tower of Annihilation with a wave of his body. He looked a little down and said, Boss, what are your orders? Xiao Long had completely lost interest in the sudden change in terrain. I haven't received my salary for a long time. Why is boss getting stingier and stingier? He doesn't even give me a DD anymore. I'm unhappy that Xiao Long felt very wronged. He had worked very hard during this period of time, and the space of the Tower of Emptiness was changing day by day. There were huge changes every day, but this heartless boss was just stingy. The sky was 9 feet high, and the feathers of a swallow were not enough to describe it. It's time to pay your salary. Seeing Xiao Long's current state, Zhuo Xiaoduo naturally understood this principle. His face was full of emotions. I was really too busy recently. I actually forgot that you worked so hard. Xiao Long's eyes were full of distrust and unhappiness. He tilted his head and looked at him. Forgot? I don't believe you. Ha! A miser like you will say that you forgot even if you remember. How can I not understand your face? Other people's faces are at most as thick as the city walls. You should at least be as thick as the city walls. Who knows, you might even be as thick as the city walls. I'll make it up to you now. There's also an extra bonus. Zhuo Xiaoduo was very generous. He directly threw out 2 drops of luck points. Do you want it? This is just your salary. Whoa! Xiao Long immediately became energetic. His slender body swished in circles in the air, and his face was full of flattery. Boss is so good. I want to eat. But you're slacking off now. Zhuo Xiaoduo looked at Xiao Long with disappointment. You don't even have the mood to pay you. You're so lazy. I feel like I'm losing out by paying you. Boss, as long as you have DD, I'll definitely turn over a new leaf and become a dragon again. From now on, I'll study hard and improve every day. I'll do my best for you, boss. I'll contribute my last drop of energy until I die. You make it sound so nice. Boss, good boss. Xiao Long anxiously spun in circles, his tail even wagging crazily like a pug. Okay, I'll give it to you. Zhuo Xiaoduo threw out 2 drops of luck points, but he was clearly not interested. This is your reward from a few days ago. It's converted to salary, 1.5 drops. I'll directly give you 2 drops now. How about that? Okay, boss is the best. Xiao Long jumped and ate the luck points. His face was as intoxicated as before. At this moment, his dragon life reached its climax again. Perfection. At this moment, whatever you say. Seeing that you've worked hard, I'll give you an extra drop as your bonus. Zhuo Xiaoduo threw out another drop. It was rare for him to be generous. He kept his word and really gave a bonus. Bwr! Xiao Long jumped up and caught it in one bite. Boss, you're so nice. Boo-hoo! I've let you down. Xiao Long was touched and tears streamed down his face. I've done too little for boss. Boo-hoo! I feel guilty. Do you see this space? Zhuo Xiaoduo gestured with his hand. This is an independent space. Take a look inside. Are there any good things like earth veins, dragon veins, and the like? There are also heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Everything here is our goal for this trip. The more the better. We won't reject anything, Zhuo Xiaoduo said. There are quite a lot of earth veins here. There are even dragon veins. Xiao Long flew into the sky and looked around. He was very surprised. In such a place, there must be a lot of heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Damn, this feels like this space hasn't been excavated in a long time. But why is there an aura of death in such a good place? This shouldn't be. It's too strange. You can tell too? This area is an independent world. It's said that in 2 months, this space will collapse. It's probably what you mean by the aura of death. So we have to take advantage of this time to collect as much as we can. Zhuo Xiaoduo said, Do you understand? Xiao Long was stunned. I see. I knew this space had an aura of death. It's gradually turning illusory. It's about to collapse. What a pity. So if the things here can't be transported out before it collapses, it'll be a waste. They'll only return to nothingness. Do you understand? This time I've prepared 20 drops for you as your basic salary. Zhuo Xiaoduo threw out a bomb. 20 drops. The illusory dragon scales all over Xiaolong's body suddenly exploded. His 2 eyeballs directly popped out. His huge eyeballs directly floated to Zhuoxiaoduo and stared at him. Just the basic salary? That's right. Zhuoxiaoduo said lightly, the extra bonus will only be more than the basic salary. Boss, I love you, I love you, I love you to death. Xiaolong was so happy that he went crazy. With a whoosh, the whole dragon wrapped around Zhuoxiaoduo's leg. Several of his claws hugged Zhuoxiaoduo's thigh tightly. His dragon head rubbed against it again and again. He was so happy that he choked with sobs. Boss, I'm your most loyal, most caring dragon boy. Get lost. Zhuoxiaoduo shook his leg in disdain. Xiaolong held on tightly. With snot and tears, he continued rubbing and rubbing. Boss, I'll be your dragon for the rest of my life. When I'm alive, I'll be your dragon. When I die, I'll be your dead dragon. I'll never leave you, I'll never change my mind. Let go of me. Zhuoxiaoduo said angrily, what you're doing now is useless. What you need to consider now is whether you can get it in your hands. Do you understand? Why are you so happy now? How do I get it in my hands? Xiaolong asked hopefully. How do I know how you can get it? Zhuoxiaoduo said, do you see this space? I want all the dragon veins that I can see, all the heavenly materials and earthly treasures on the ground and underground, all the jade of astral souls, and all the earth veins. In short, I want all the good things in my pocket. Do you understand? Zhuoxiaoduo said, this is a big project. If you can't do it, don't even think about the basic salary, let alone the bonus. Yes, that's not right. Not only will I not get a salary if I can't do it, even if I get less, I still won't get a basic salary. You have to make me feel that it's about right. Then I'll pay you a salary. If I'm satisfied, I'll pay you a salary and bonus at the same time. If I'm super satisfied. Xiaolong was so excited that he was shaking all over. His eyes were shining. Super satisfied? So what? The salary and bonus will be doubled on the original basis. After leaving this arcane realm, I'll pay you immediately. There will be no delay. Zhuoxiaoduo waved his hand generously. Xiaolong immediately counted with his dragon claws. It's about right. I'll pay you a salary. 20 dd. If you're satisfied, I'll pay you a bonus. No less than 20. That's 40 dd. If you're super satisfied, your salary and bonus will be doubled. 80 dd. 80 dd. 80 dd. Oh my god, am I dreaming? Even if it's a dream, let me wake up later. Let me be intoxicated before I wake up. Xiaolong roared to the sky for a long time. There were already a few shiny droplets of saliva hanging from the corners of his mouth. He shouted as if he was making a great wish, boss, don't worry. I'll definitely make you super satisfied this time. I'll let you get the real one-stop service. As he spoke, he was determined. This time, he must complete it. He must be super satisfied. Definitely. He must complete it even if he had to risk his dragon life. ADDD, that's great. Chapter 785. Don't be happy too early. You'll be rewarded according to your work and punished if you don't. If your harvest is less than 5 dragon veins, you'll be disqualified. At that time, not only will you lose your salary, but you'll also have your future salary deducted. Long, don't blame me for not warning you. Boss, just wait and see. This is a paradise, a world of its own. It hasn't been excavated for thousands or tens of thousands of years. Just 5 earth veins won't be a problem. Xiaolong said confidently. Dragon veins, not earth veins. Okay. Xiaolong didn't feel ashamed at all when he was discovered to be transforming concepts. Boss, go ahead. There are many natural treasures in the forest. Although the quality is average, the variety is okay. Especially the white jade vine underground. It looks like it's at least tens of thousands of years old. In less than a minute, Xiaolong had scouted out the nearest loot. The only thing you need to be careful of is that there are a few demonic beasts residing here. Demonic beasts? Are they beautiful? Are they delicious? Are their inner cores valuable? Zhuoxiaoduo asked. They're not beautiful. I don't know if they're delicious or not. Of course, the inner cores are valuable. Xiao Long rolled his eyes. Why don't you ask if you can beat the demonic beasts? Are you so confident? Isn't this too self-confidence? How could Xiaolong not know how much confidence Xiao Duo had at this moment? I'm now at the advanced level of nascent soul. Right now, not to mention transformation cloud, even if it's a royal god, I can still win. Even if it's a return profound, I can still fight. I was threatened by the Umno Alliance's boss, the world's #1 expert. How can a mere demonic beast be a threat to me? Even now. It's just the nascent soul training area. What's there to be afraid of? Zhuo Xiaoduo's confidence was like a wildfire, soaring into the sky and filling the world. Without saying a word, he took out the spirit cat sword and told Xiaolong not to worry about him and go to other places to investigate. Then he started to collect the dragon veins and dragon veins. Then he rushed directly into the forest. In this world, I'm a god, an invincible existence. But Zhuo Xiaoduo seemed to have overlooked something. This was the nascent soul training area. But this was the nascent soul training area from tens of thousands of years ago. After countless years of evolution, even the flood which didn't know what had happened here. How powerful were the demonic beasts here? Were they really only at the nascent soul stage? Zhuo Xiaoduo rushed into the forest and a few demonic beasts rushed out as expected. Tearing the earth from the lion's head, plucking the teeth from the tiger's mouth. You demon beasts, how dare you? Get down, open your stomach open, and offer your inner core to be offered. Zhuo Xiaoduo took confident steps. Even though he was in a place where no one could see him, he still used an extremely pretentious posture to take care of several demonic beasts with his bare hands. Yes, Zhuo Xiaoduo's current strength was far beyond his current cultivation realm. Regardless of whether the demonic beast's strength was in the nascent soul stage or not, they were all easily dealt with by him. He took out their inner cores, peeled off their skins, and smelled their flesh. It smelled a little stinky, so he directly threw them away and ignored them. Then he let out a long roar, stood with his hands behind his back, and recited a poem. Today in the invincible secret realm, I know I'm a real dragon. I'm tyrannical, I ask the 12 great sorcerers, do you dare to speak? Ha! After another seemingly heroic roar, he turned his head and looked around. No one heard it, right? Then he took out a big shovel and began to dig. So what if the demonic beasts didn't have much oil? Weren't there still treasures below? The soil was as soft as the soil. Zhuo Xiaoduo quickly drilled down like a mouse. One, and another. But I'm really the son of heaven. If this goes on, what's 2 sleeves worth? At least 2 sleeves worth a mountain of silver. On the other side. Long Yusheng limped out of the pit and suddenly found that he was surrounded by demonic beasts. Every demonic beast had the strength of a high-level nascent soul. What the hell, what kind of place is this? How can a nascent soul demonic beast's strength be so abnormal? Long Yusheng tried his best and urged every bit of strength to launch an extreme battle. Wanli Xiu was crazily running for her life. Behind her, there was a demonic beast at the peak of the cloud transformation realm the size of a small hill. Wanli Xiu was about to cry. Wasn't this supposed to be a nascent soul trial? How could such a powerful demonic beast appear? Wanli Xiu was certainly not the worst. Yu Moyan killed hundreds of demonic beasts with a sword. The thick smell of blood attracted a single-horned dragon that was almost at the Demon King level, so much so that Yu Moyan was also running for his life. The most terrible thing was that the single-horned dragon's speed was extremely fast. Yu Moyan ran at full speed, but still could only maintain a distance of tens of meters. If he was a little careless or slack off, he would be hit on the back. Fortunately, during this period of time, Yu Moyan spent almost every moment of every day in such an environment. He was not afraid of it and kept running with his head down. As long as he was not afraid of being tired and kept running, the demonic beast would eventually feel tired and naturally give up. Li Zhangming was hugging a huge female pig that was 40 to 50 times bigger than him and fell asleep. There was no other way. When Li Zhangming fell here, the first thing he did was to kill a few of these piglets that looked very different and had a horn on their head. As a result, this huge pig was lured out. Li Zhongming was completely not its opponent. He had no choice but to activate the Great Dream Divine Technique, and fell asleep together with the pig. Li Chenglong's situation was not better than the others. At this moment, he was running for his life in a valley. Behind Swollen, there was a dense swarm of poisonous snakes. There were big ones and small ones. There were a few golden snakes that were as thick as rollers. They were flying in 3 different directions on both sides of the valley. There were all kinds of poisonous snakes flying out and attacking Li Chenglong. Swollen was about to cry. I didn't do anything. I just fell down and was unlucky enough to fall into a snake cave and accidentally killed a snake. I just drank a few mouthfuls of snake blood and found that the whole valley was full of snakes. Yi Shiwen thought. Yi Shiwen didn't know what to say. This is so unlucky. Who can save me? Li Chenglong looked up to the sky and shouted, using the secret signal that Hidden Dragon High Martial Artist had set himself. But after a long time, no one responded. This Crown Prince's Academy was so vast that it was like a world. 24,000 people were thrown in and there was not even a splash. So far, Li Chenglong's cry for help seemed to be heard only by him. The others, firstly, didn't know how far away they were. Secondly, almost all of them were being hunted down by all kinds of demonic beasts. Zhou Yunqing was also running for his life. His luck was even worse. When he fell, he ran into a demonic beast that was absorbing the essence of the sun and moon in the sky. Zhou Yunqing, coincidentally, fell directly into the demonic beast's mouth. The demonic beast's teeth were broken. The force of the fall caused Zhou Yunqing to fall all the way into the demonic beast's huge stomach. The internal organs of the demonic beast were smashed into pieces. The huge demonic beast that had inexplicably suffered a fatal injury was in great pain. Carrying Zhou Yunqing in its stomach, it ran for thousands of miles before it died of exhaustion. Zhou Yunqing crawled out of the demonic beast's stomach with great difficulty. Only then did he realize that this seemed to be the deepest part of a forest. And at this moment, there were a few demonic beasts eating the corpse of the demonic beast that brought him here. When Zhou Yunqing suddenly came out of the demonic beast's stomach, the demonic beasts that were feasting outside were startled. Such a strange thing actually crawled out of this fellow's stomach, but they were only startled because their attention quickly shifted to this strange thing. They wondered if it tasted good. Zhou Yunqing, who had been corroded by the stomach acid of the demonic beast, had not recovered from the pain in his body. He began to run for his life. Xiang Bing, Xiang Chong, Yu Yan, Zhen Piapiao, Pai Yibao, Meng Zhangjun, Gao Qiaoer and the others. Everyone was running for their lives. In fact, it was not only them. All the geniuses that came in. A total of 9,000 nascent soul transformation cultivators from the 3 continents had come in to train. At this moment, there were less than 1,000 people who were not running for their lives. These 1,000 people who were not running for their lives were not like Suishao Duo, who had sufficient strength to deal with the situation. But most of them had directly fallen into the demonic beast's nest. Before they could react, they had already been eaten by the demonic beasts. In other words, as soon as they entered this training ground, almost 10% of the nascent soul transformation cultivators had already died. After tens of thousands of years of recuperation, this area was really filled with death and danger. For example, a disciple of the Umno Alliance fell into a swamp after falling down. He tried his best to rush to the shore, but he was directly sucked dry by a group of mosquitoes that were bigger than a human. 2 disciples of the Tao League fell into a desert. But in the next moment, the desert turned into a sea of insects and directly swallowed the 2 geniuses of the Tao League, leaving nothing behind. On the side of the Astral Souls continent, a disciple did not have time to land on the ground. While he was still in midair, he was targeted by a huge bird that flew across the sky. The bird took him into its mouth, chewed and swallowed him. It was not that the disciple did not want to adapt or resist, but his cultivation was sealed and he could not react. It was really easy for him to die. All in all kinds of strange deaths occurred one after another. All kinds of bizarre encounters were naturally different. This situation was not limited to the nascent soul transformation cultivators. Whether it was the Huayun, Imperial God, or mystic returning cultivators, it was the same. There were very few people like Zhuxiaoyan who did not only fall down unscathed, but also directly obtained an amazing opportunity. She was the only one, and there was no other. From this, it could be seen that the flood which was sucked dry. It was really not wrong. Chapter 786. Zhuxiaoduo dashed out of the dense forest and plucked all the spiritual herbs on the ground and under the ground. This kid was really greedy. He even put the ordinary ginseng that was only worth tens of thousands of yuan into his space-destroying pagoda. Along the way, the entire forest behind him would need at least a few thousand years to recover its vitality. Even the ground was full of holes. Even if his father, the 1 meter higher sky, was here, he might not be able to plunder as cleanly as him. Most likely, Zhuqianglu could only collect the herbs on the ground. He did not know everything about what was hidden in the deep underground. At this moment, if Zhuqianglu's old rivals saw Zhuxiaoduo's operation, they would definitely sigh and say, "The student has surpassed the master. The 1 meter higher sky has a successor." This successor had even surpassed the scope of the 1 meter higher sky. He had reached the level of a devil entering the village. Kill, burn, and plunder. The policy of 3 empties was being implemented. As long as there was something of value, there was nothing that Zhuxiaoduo did not want. After digging up another heaven and earth treasure, Zhuxiaoduo flew directly to the top of the mountain according to Xiaolong's guidance. Looking around, all he could see were rolling hills and mountains. Zhuxiaoduo did not hesitate and leaped down from the other side. When he was halfway up the mountain, a big snake stretched out its head and opened its mouth to swallow. A hurricane-like suction force was still rising, but it directly swallowed a 9x9 cat hammer. This poor big snake only bit subconsciously, but it bit until the Grim Reaper arrived. Gotcha. The big snake rushed out and rolled around in pain. Zhuxiaoduo saw that the snake was too ugly, so he smashed it to death and took its Naiden. After thinking for a while, he checked its joints and found that the snake's cultivation was still shallow. It did not even have a snake pearl. There was only a small snake pearl in its head. He flew up and kicked it away. He scolded in disdain, "After so many years, you still can't grow the knuckle snake pearl. You've been blind for countless years. I don't think highly of you." They continued to advance towards the second forest in the distance. Along the way, all the demonic beasts within the attack range suffered a calamity. Puff, 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 puff. If they encountered Zhuxiaoduo, not only would they die individually, but they would also be wiped out as a whole. Even if they didn't meet him head-on, as long as Uncles saw them, their entire clan would be wiped out. Those who were ugly would have their inner cores removed and their brains dug out. Those who were good-looking would have their inner cores removed and their tendons pulled out and their skin peeled off, leaving only the beast's skin. They would have to walk a bloody path. In any case, it will collapse in a few months. Rather than perishing with it, why not let me take advantage of it? What's the point of you all collapsing together with the space? Zhuxiaoduo slaughtered along the way, and his conscience was at ease. All demonic beasts should kneel down the moment they see me. Then, they should take out their inner cores and treasured pearls. Then, they should peel off their skin and pull out their tendons. And line up to wait for me to collect them. Who knows, I might even praise them for their excellent service. You actually want to fight with me? You're simply ignorant. Zhuxiaoduo rushed madly into the forest like a peerless master. His steps were calm and unrestrained, and his face was calm and collected. All the demonic beasts he encountered, whether they were running away or charging at him, were all killed in front of him. He continued to advance into the depths of the forest. At this moment, a buzzing sound suddenly rang out. A large swarm of mosquitoes flew over, covering the sky and covering the earth. Zhuxiaoduo took a look and was shocked for the first time. Fuck, these mosquitoes, when they spread their wings, they were actually as big as vultures. And their stomachs were bulging. Even if they didn't include the wings, they were almost half his size. So big, so many mosquitoes? Zhuxiaoduo made a prompt decision. Without saying anything, he took out the evil and strange poisonous things that his godfather had given him from the space ring. He waved them in the air, and with a light swoosh, a black wind rushed out from Zhuxiaoduo's hand. In an instant, the whole forest was covered. What happened next really shocked Zhuo. In a flash, he was already high up in the sky. The whole forest, which was hundreds of miles in radius, instantly decayed. The trees directly decayed, and the terrifying number of mosquitoes turned into black ashes the moment they came into contact with the black smoke. After a quarter of an hour, the rumbling sound of trees falling down rose and fell one after another. The whole forest became dark. All the demonic beasts in this area were killed instantly, decayed, and merged into the soil. As the initiator, Zhuo was so scared that his legs and stomach were cramping. Godfather, Godfather, what are you doing? What have you collected? This thing only says poisonous wind. But I didn't expect it to be such a poisonous wind. Zhuo didn't even want to go down. According to Xiao Long's report, there should be something down there. But looking at the hundreds of miles of darkness, Zhuo immediately dismissed this idea. It was too scary. It scared him so much that his little heart was thumping. Godfather, if you are in heaven and know that your things have scared your godson like this, shouldn't you feel ashamed? Of course, Zhuo didn't know. The things in Godfather's ring were actually tributes from the other great shamans. As long as the great shamans made something new, they would first send it to their boss to see its power and then study it to see if it could be used on the battlefield. Naturally, the greater the lethality, the better. The more terrifying, the better. That the poisonous wind he took out was the one that the non-poisonous great shaman had studied for several years. He wanted to use it on the battlefield. In the end, it was strictly forbidden by the Flood Witch. There were a total of 3 of these things, and they were all confiscated. He didn't even leave a backup for the non-poisonous great shaman. All of them were kept in the Flood Witch's life ring. And this thing was named Earth Hairdryer by the non-poisonous great shaman. It was really worthy of its name. It was used to blow wind on the earth. As long as this wind blew, the entire earth would be clean. From this, it could be seen that when the non-poisonous great shaman wanted to follow him to the astral souls to play, the higher-ups here would rather not hold a party than let him come over. This guy was really not fun. When he was angry, all the living things within tens of thousands of miles would be destroyed. Who would dare to let such a guy come to their house? Not to mention the people in the astral souls, even the other members of the 12 great shamans had to disinfect it several times every time the non-poisonous great shaman came to their territory as a guest. Each earth hairdryer could be used 10 times. As for Zhuo, he had only used one of them for the first time. It's better to use this thing less. Judging from these things, my godfather doesn't seem to be a good person, Zhuo muttered, but the level of these things is too far from Godfather's level, isn't it? He's just an old bachelor who was bullied so badly. Where did so many of these things come from? Zhuo ran away in the air. In this forest, the demonic beasts that had not yet suffered and were further away were all scared witless as they fled in all directions. It was too scary. What the hell was this thing? Why was it so scary? Zhuo ran for more than 1,000 miles and came to another mountain. It seemed to be the main base of a mountain range. Xiao Long was now in this mountain range, working hard to transport. The dragon vein that originally existed in this mountain range had been swallowed by Xiao Long without hesitation. Boss said that this place would immediately collapse. This dragon vein is useless to keep, so I'll swallow it directly to avoid wasting it. That there was no such thing as going against the heavenly Tao here because it would soon cease to exist. It was right to make use of the waste. Zhuo looked at the fat Xiao Long in front of him, pulling an illusory green thing in his arms. He couldn't help but be shocked. Why are you fat? Did you eat fertilizer? No, I didn't eat fertilizer. There's a dragon vein here. Isn't it about to collapse? I discussed it with this dragon vein, and it willingly allowed me to swallow it. Xiao Long held the earth vein and said bashfully, "It's hard to refuse such kindness. It would be impolite to refuse, so I had to swallow it." I believe you. Long won't lie to me. Zhuo sneered. Xiao Long smiled embarrassedly. He held the earth vein and was about to go into the Tower of Annihilation. Suddenly he stopped and said, "Boss, there's a big astral soul's jade mine below. There's also a lot of that black ore of the highest quality. Do you want it? Do you even need to ask? Do you want it? Zhuoxiaoduo's eyes were as golden as the sun. I have to take it all away. Are you done moving the earth vein? It won't affect me. You can just dig directly. I'll keep pulling the earth vein. Both sides will cooperate. I'll need to move this earth vein about 3 times. Xiao Long was very open-minded. The cleaner you dig, the better. It'll save you a lot of effort. Not mine anyway. Okay, you point to a spot. Priority is to dig out the highest quality astral soul's jade. Zhuoxiaoduo immediately took out his 99 kitty hammer and smashed a huge hole in the side of the mountain. Then he used the heavenly witchcraft copper shovel to dig wantonly. I can't believe that I, Zhuoxiaoduo, the #1 genius in the universe, am digging now. Zhuoxiaoduo felt sorry for himself, but he didn't let his guard down. His big shovel swished and his face was full of excitement. He didn't look disappointed at all that there was a pile of the highest quality astral soul's jade mine below. The heavens really bless the good. It's hard not to get rich. I'm going to get rich. Zhuoxiaoduo was sweating profusely. He buried his head in his work without any scruples. In this area, there was basically no one else. Zhuoxiaoduo was working without restraint. He used the hammer, smashed for a while, and then used the shovel. Then he used the hammer again. And again. It was a big scene. In less than 10 minutes, half of the mountain in front of him had been knocked down. Zhuoxiaoduo sank deep into the newly dug pit. Chapter 787. Whoosh whoosh. Useless stones and low-level jade of astral souls were thrown out one by one. The quality of the astral soul's jade veins in the land was really good. Other than the low-level jade of astral souls on the surface, the rest below were all middle-level jade of astral souls. With a casual shovel, all of them were middle-level jade of astral souls with a hard outer shell. If it were an ordinary person, knowing that there were top-level and top-level jade of astral souls below, they would not be interested in the middle-level jade of astral souls. After all, there was a limit to the space ring. The standard of this trial was very high. They were only worried that there would not be enough storage space. However, Zhuoxiaoduo was different. Not to mention that his Tower of Annihilation could almost hold the entire Fenghai city, Zhuoxiaoduo already felt that it was a waste to reject the low-level jade of astral souls on the surface. If he did not accept the middle-level jade of astral souls, Zhuoxiaoduo would feel that he had lost a lot of money. It was like throwing money out that although there was no capital, Zhuoxiaoduo instinctively felt that. If he could earn more, he would earn less. That would be a loss. This weird mentality made Uncle Zhuo pile up a mountain of middle-level jade of astral souls in the space of the Tower of Annihilation. Slowly, they reached the top-level jade of astral souls. Zhuoxiaoduo opened up another area in the Tower of Annihilation and started to crazily fill it up. It was really too satisfying. The top-level jade of astral souls in the outside world were palm-sized and 20 centimeters thick. They were suitable for sale in the market. However, the top-level jade of astral souls here was as big as a millstone. Its width and thickness were almost the same. The moment they were dug out, they were piled up in the Tower of Annihilation. Zhuoxiaoduo was sweating profusely, but he was only happy in his heart. Damn it, there was no one around. The feeling of being rich to his heart's content was really too good. He wondered how many of these mines there were in this space. Just as Zhuoxiaoduo was making a fortune, it had to be said that there was a common mentality. Almost everyone had it, regardless of whether they were veterans or green-skinned newbies. Of course, whether it was the humans, the Wu people, or the demon race. There were all of them. This mentality was called curiosity. A guy with an incomparably curious heart finally couldn't hold back his curiosity. In the mountains not far away, a scorpion that was about to reach the king level had been watching them for a long time. The large scorpion was very strange. For so many years, this scorpion has been the overlord of this place, but I have never seen this mountain shake. What is going on here now? Why is it suddenly rumbling? Why is it so loud? What's going on? He was dying of curiosity. Could it be that some ignorant demon had come here and wanted to snatch the territory from me? After enduring for half an hour with the greatest patience, The large scorpion began to cautiously make a detour towards this side. This prince wants to see what kind of thing is causing the mountains to shake and the earth to tremble and make me unable to sleep soundly? They went all the way to the foot of the mountain. It could only hear the sounds of banging and banging inside. Not knowing what was going on, the big scorpion's curiosity grew. Finally, it crawled to the entrance of the cave to take a look. Just as it stretched its head inside, it only saw a big hole in the ground, and it didn't know how deep it was. That's strange. What's going on? Just as it was about to take a closer look, suddenly, with a bang, a large piece of soil as big as a mountain flew up from the bottom of the cave and directly hit the large scorpion's face. There were actually many hard stones mixed in the soil. The large scorpion only felt that its head was hit by a big stone. Its two claws at the entrance of the cave loosened, and it fell down on all fours. As for the big rock, it bounced back with a bang. It fell into the deep pit. Zhuoxiao Duo, who was sweating profusely 300 meters below, suddenly felt that something was wrong above his head. The big stone that he threw out just now bounced back? But Zhuoxiao Duo didn't care too much about it, and slapped it to the side. Then he frowned. That's not right. I used just the right amount of strength. If it could fly out of the mine, how could it bounce back? I'm absolutely sure. Could it be that there's an uninvited guest? Zhuoxiao Duo had an idea, and immediately floated up quietly. It was better to go up and take a look. It was more important to be safe. Just as he reached the entrance of the cave, he saw the large scorpion climb up again, and suddenly stuck its head out. The man and the scorpion were both dumbfounded. Oh my God! As their eyes met, Zhuoxiao Duo smoothly swung his hammer towards Lin Fan. Boom! The large scorpion's hard head was hit by the hammer, but there was no change. It just swelled up, and its big eyes were wide open. Dizzy, it fell down. Zhuoxiao Duo jumped out with the hammer in his hand, still in shock. What kind of monster is this? When their eyes met just now, he was really scared out of his wits. Fortunately, he was prepared for the worst and had a hammer in his hand. Otherwise, if he had a sword, he might not have been able to hit this big guy. Damn, the other party's head was too big. As he jumped down, Zhuoxiao Duo finally saw what the other party was. What a big scorpion. This scorpion was as big as 3 or 4 houses, and the poisonous stingers on its tail were like half a train. This guy looked more ferocious than the Centipede King, but the threat it gave him was far less powerful than the Centipede King. Probably because Zhuoxiao Duo's strength had increased by more than 10 times compared to when he faced the Centipede King. Moreover, he had broken through the nascent soul transformation stage, and his spiritual sense had been greatly improved. At this moment, when facing this big scorpion, Zhuoxiao Duo instinctively had a feeling. I can handle this big guy. Once this feeling arose, Zhuoxiao Duo immediately spread out his spiritual sense to check the surroundings to make sure there was no other threat. Then, naturally, he fell down like a meteor. Although Zhuoxiao Duo judged that the other party's level should be within his tolerance range, he still didn't let his guard down. Before he made his move, he circulated the Flaming Sun scripture, ready to evaporate the poison at any time. He also hung the Centipede Queen's inner core on his chest, using it to avoid the poison mist and minimize the risk. Scorpions were extremely venomous, especially their tails. They were extremely venomous. He was here to make a fortune in this trial, so he couldn't afford to fail miserably at such an easy task. After ensuring that his eyes and ears were alert, he began to brandish the 1,000 Souls Nightmare Hammer. Without saying a word, he smashed the scorpion. The big scorpion was dumbfounded. Come up and fight? Shouldn't we communicate first? I'll roar angrily that you've invaded my territory, and then you'll argue that since you found it, it's yours, and that the treasure belongs to the virtuous one. Then I'll attack you in anger, and you'll fight back arrogantly. That the Scorpion King thought through the whole process. After all, it was always like this in the past. No matter what kind of demon beast it was, it would always say the same thing. But this time, why was this guy so straightforward? Wasn't this too straightforward? This king is not used to this. Naturally, the Scorpion King didn't know that Master Zhuo had always been a man of action. He had always believed in 4 words, just fight. No matter how reasonable you were, if you couldn't beat the other party, you were unreasonable. In this world where the bigger fist was the bigger reason, there was really nothing to say. Zhuoxiaoduo smashed the scorpion with his head. The Scorpion King roared angrily and fought back bravely. Its two big pincers danced like the wind, and its scorpion tail was like a giant steel whip with infinite power. He was actually able to fight Zhuoxiaoduo's hammer head-on for a full quarter of an hour. That was quite impressive. However, it still had its limits. Gradually, it couldn't hold on any longer, and with a miserable howl that the big scorpion dragged its tail and ran away at an extremely fast speed. With a whoosh, it was already 100 miles away, and it couldn't be seen anymore. Zhuoxiaoduo was dumbfounded by the Scorpion King's escape. It wasn't the time to decide life and death, so why did the scorpion run away? Wasn't this a little too unethical? However, this scorpion ran away without hesitation and disappeared without a trace. Zhuoxiaoduo didn't expect it to run away, so he was caught unprepared and didn't have time to chase after it. How could such a demonic beast that was close to the king realm run away so quickly? How could he run away so shamelessly? Zhuoxiaoduo spat and turned back. It's good that it ran away, I'll continue digging. However, after a few minutes of digging, the light above his head suddenly dimmed. The big scorpion had returned, and it even spat out a mouthful of thick poisonous fog. In the blink of an eye, the entire mine was filled with dense poisonous fog. Zhuoxiaoduo was enraged. I let you go because I have the best quality star soul jade here. You actually dare to play a trick on me and make a false accusation? He leaped up like the sun. Fortunately, he had been circulating the Flaming Sun Sutra, or he might have failed miserably. This scorpion was simply too hateful. It deserved to die. However, this time, the big scorpion's performance was completely different from before. It was like a different scorpion. It was a fierce battle. The Scorpion King and Zhuoxiaoduo fought fiercely until its pincers were broken by Zhuoxiaoduo, and the poisonous stinger on its tail was broken. However, it still didn't retreat and went all out, risking its life. And this fearless attitude actually made Zhuoxiaoduo feel some respect for him. This scorpion was really awesome. Who said it didn't have any morals? It actually made me so tired that I was gasping for breath. My back was aching and I couldn't even move. Zhuoxiaoduo exerted all his strength and hammered the big scorpion a dozen times, smashing it until its body was in tatters. Even its head was smashed in half. Seeing that it couldn't survive, Zhuoxiaoduo couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief and come back to clean up the battlefield. Unexpectedly, the big scorpion let out a long and mournful cry, as if it was summoning its last breath, and rushed out into the forest. Was it trying to find a place to bury itself? Scorpion King, you're overthinking things. It's impossible for you to find a place to bury yourself after meeting me, Zhuoxiaoduo. You have to cut open its stomach, cut it into pieces, and take all the benefits before you can talk about anything else. However, Zhuoxiaoduo was overthinking things this time, because the Scorpion King turned around and came back, and in a state that Zhuoxiaoduo never expected. In just a moment, the Scorpion King rushed out of the forest with a strong momentum, its body pulsing with waves of red light. What really shocked Zhuoxiaoduo was that the Scorpion King was recovering from its injuries as it rushed back. In just a few seconds, when the big scorpion rushed back in front of Zhuoxiaoduo, it had already completely recovered. It had completely recovered in such a short period of time, and was in a perfect state. It was full of vigor, holding two big claws that were shining with a black light and were intact, without even a scratch, and fiercely rushed over. Its head, which was almost smashed by Zhuoxiaoduo's hammer, was also intact, without a single scar. If it wasn't for the disgusting bloody traces on its body, Zhuoxiaoduo would almost think that this scorpion was a twin or triplet. Chapter 788. However, the scorpion's speedy recovery did not frighten Zhuoxiaoduo. Instead, it aroused his interest. It turns out that this guy is relying on its speedy recovery. That's why it dares to fight me in the most barbaric and extreme way. Zhuoxiaoduo's mind was racing. I believe that this scorpion was not born with the ability to heal itself. Otherwise, it would have recovered infinitely during the battle. Why would it go back and forth? The first time it escaped, it really escaped. However, it came back for some reason. Then, it was almost killed by me again. It rushed back and recovered. It means that somewhere in that direction, there is some kind of treasure that can help it recover quickly. Thinking of this, Zhuoxiaoduo's heart was burning. It seems that this treasure is this scorpion's biggest trump card. It's the reason why it's so fearless. Zhuoxiaoduo did not guess wrongly. The big scorpion had been dominating this place for a long time. It had experienced many battles. Occasionally, there would be powerful demonic beasts that passed by. Almost all of them were beaten away or killed by it in this way. The scorpion had gotten used to this mode of fighting. It had even tasted the sweetness of it. As long as a monster passed by, as long as its cultivation level was not too far apart, it would jump out and challenge it to a fight. It was invincible and invincible. This was also the reason why the scorpion was so curious and overconfident. Any monster, as long as it did not have a crushing advantage, could not recover infinitely. But the scorpion could. Naturally, it was full of confidence. Zhuoxiaoduo fought with the scorpion again. At the same time, he called out to Xiao Long in his mind. Come out, something big has happened. Xiao Long, who was doing manual labor to move the earth vein, hurried over. Boss, what's the matter? Go and see if there's any treasure over there. This scorpion can actually recover from serious injuries in a very short time. It's amazing. Zhuoxiaoduo gave a brief introduction. Xiao Long's eyes lit up when he heard this. He went out silently. The large scorpion was completely oblivious to this. It was still charging forward confidently. The two-legged beast in front of it was not much stronger than it was. It was just that its weapon was slightly more powerful. It was not a strong opponent that in a normal battle, he was no match for it, but he could recover limitlessly, which he did not have. As long as he continued to fight, he would definitely be able to become the final victor like in the past. And once he ate such a powerful existence, his cultivation would definitely increase by another level. Exhaust him to death. Eat him. It was simply wishful thinking. The large scorpion cried out excitedly in its heart, cheering loudly for the intense battle. The more it fought, the more ferocious it became, not holding back at all. The heavier its injuries, the happier it was. The more serious this king's injuries are, the more your strength will be drained. Hurry up and use up all your strength. I can't wait to taste your body. The large scorpion continued to attack crazily, completely ignoring the fact that its body was being smashed into pieces. It was a classic example of how one couldn't catch a wolf without sacrificing one's child, how one couldn't catch a hoodlum without sacrificing one's wife, and how one couldn't eat the two-legged beast in front of him. Zhuoxiaoduo had made up his mind. Using defense as an attack, he fought steadily and surely. He gradually changed his position, jumping and jumping. Without the scorpion noticing, both sides' positions changed. Now, the scorpion's position changed from the east to the south, while Zhuoxiaoduo's position changed from the west to the north. Xiao Long flew back quickly, his voice full of uncontrollable excitement. Boss, there really is something good, something super good. What super good thing? There's a 5-colored stone over there. 5-colored stone? Zhuoxiaoduo was completely ignorant of this term. He had never heard of it. To put it in a way that you can understand, it's the life source stone. It should be a whole piece, but for some reason a small piece was broken off. The big scorpion obtained it by chance and hid it in the forest over there, which is the source of its rapid recovery. The Scorpion King obtained a small piece, then where is the rest? The big piece is still underground over there. Xiao Long was in high spirits. I was wondering why there was such a high-quality astral soul's jade vein here. It turns out that there is such a high-quality thing nearby. It's reasonable. Zhuoxiaoduo swung his hammer and fought while expressing his puzzlement. The 5-colored stone is over there. Why is it mined here? This doesn't make sense, does it? This is the characteristic of the 5-colored stone. The 5-colored stone is the legendary stone that mends the sky, also known as the life source stone. It is the source of life for all living things. The 5-colored stone itself has an extremely abundant and almost endless source of life, which is already extremely rare. But the other characteristic of the 5-colored stone is even more valuable. which is that it can form a vitality magnetic field within a certain range. Within this magnetic field, vitality points are randomly generated. As long as vitality points are generated, over time, all the power and energy will be concentrated in this place, and it will produce various kinds of source stone veins. Xiaolong blabbered on and on. The dragon's mouth was drooling. This 5-colored stone. Of course, he couldn't use it directly, but as long as he took it back and placed it in the space of the Tower of Emptiness, the dragon vein in the tower would become more and more stable. And as the vital energy of the 5-colored stone continued to nourish the space of the Tower of Emptiness would only become more and more stable, and it would continue to expand when vitality points appeared in the mine of the Tower of Emptiness. His own body of luck would also grow with it, and there would be many benefits. At the thought of this, Xiaolong was so excited that he almost went crazy. He almost received a lot of deity. I see, so this is the whole truth. Zuoxiao Duo roared and put away the training hammer. The next thing that appeared in his hand was the 9x9 cat hammer. Die, scorpion. You came to me to give me treasures. If I don't give you a quick death, I'll be sorry for your eagerness. Coincidentally, the scorpion's aura was getting more and more powerful. It breathed in and out poisonous fog, shaking its head and wagging its tail. It was in its most powerful state. In its eyes, the 2-legged beast opposite it seemed to be exhausted that the beating just now didn't leave any scars on its body. It was still exhausted and was about to be defeated. Hee 2-legged beast, watch me eat you up. It had to be said that the Scorpion King was ugly, but it had a beautiful imagination. Just when the Scorpion King was in high spirits and complacent, it saw that the other party's aura suddenly changed. The 2 big hammers in its hands suddenly disappeared. The weapons disappeared? Why did the aura increase when the weapons disappeared? The Scorpion King looked over and saw that the 2-legged beast opposite it had taken out the big hammers again. It was just that the aura was really increasing. At this moment, the Scorpion King almost laughed out loud. This damn 2-legged beast opposite it, is he joking with me? You put away the hammers first and then took them out again. Do you think you've changed your weapons? The hammers are obviously the same too, and their size is exactly the same. Who can't tell? Do you really think I'm an idiot? Looks like I've really reached my limit, and there's nothing I can do. The Scorpion King thought that it had seen through Zuoxiaoduo's disguise. It happily pounced forward, obviously intending to kill him on the spot. After all, it wasn't seriously injured in this round of battle, and its strength was still at its most powerful state. Zuoxiaoduo roared and directly raised the Flaming Sun Sutra to the 2nd level. He leaped up, and in an instant, the 9-9 kitty hammer was covered in a blazing white light. 1,000 Souls Nightmare Hammer, activate. Both parties were at their limits and the same strength. Zuoxiaoduo's hammer smashed down on one of the big pincers waved by the Scorpion King. However, the strength of Zuoxiaoduo's hammer was unimaginably strong, far beyond the Scorpion King's imagination. The Scorpion King let out a miserable howl, and its pincers were instantly broken and sent flying. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. The Scorpion King had obviously neglected a very important thing. Its pincers had recovered in an instant, but these newly grown pincers were no longer its original pincers that had been tempered for a long time. When facing an ordinary opponent, perhaps it wouldn't matter. However, when facing an opponent of equal strength, the difference in toughness was too great. The other hammer smashed down viciously, and the other pincer was broken. The Scorpion King roared and turned around at lightning speed, wanting to charge back. However, when it turned its head, it was stunned, and stood there in a daze for a full breath of time. This direction wasn't right. The Scorpion King quickly identified the direction, and planned to charge over, recover, and fight again. However, it saw that the 2-legged beast was already guarding the path it had to pass, and was attacking it again. Since the start of the battle, the Scorpion King felt that something was wrong for the first time. Zuoxiaoduo roared and smashed down thousands of times in a row. At this moment, the mountains and valleys were trembling and rumbling. The Scorpion King was hammered by Zuoxiaoduo from head to toe. It was truly dead. Until the last moment of its death, the Scorpion King was still puzzled. What's going on? This shouldn't be. I'm immortal. Boom. Zhuoxiao Duo smashed his hammer on the scorpion's body that was still twitching slightly. Without any hesitation, he smashed the scorpion's head open. He reached out his hand and a pomelo-like pearl appeared in his hand. Sure enough, there's more. Zhuoxiao Duo continued smashing. He consecutively took out 4 pearls from the Scorpion King's spine and an inner elixir from its stomach. At this point, he could have stopped. However, Zhuoxiao Duo was still unwilling to give up. He diligently collected the Scorpion King's brain matter, harvested a few thousand kilograms of the Scorpion King's spiritual meat, and then put the Scorpion King's tail and its poison sac into the space-destroying tower. This is good stuff. I'm afraid it's much more valuable than the Centipede King's meat. Zhuoxiao Duo thought happily. As everyone knows, the Scorpion King's meat can strengthen the yang energy, and it's an excellent ingredient for brewing wine. Ordinary scorpions can strengthen the yang energy. How powerful would this Scorpion King's spirit be? Zhuoxiao Duo thought to himself. He would definitely make a fortune if he sold it to those people who sit in the office and write novels every day. Well, those people, except for the most handsome author with the surname Feng, all of them had kidney problems. Chapter 789. Zhuoxiao Duo heaved a sigh as he tidied up the scorpion. He felt that it was a fly in the ointment. In order to end this battle as soon as possible so that he could harvest the multicolored stone, he had used too much force. Moreover, all the flesh in the newly grown pincers had been wasted. All in all, he had wasted a lot of flesh. Thinking of this, Zhuoxiao Duo pulled out the tendons of the scorpion that were still intact to make up for the loss. Then he rushed into the forest. In a place filled with poisonous fog, there was a small cave. A round, multicolored stone the size of a cigarette box was quietly placed there, exuding a soft glow. Even if one were to look at it closely, they would at most be able to see the vibrant colors, but they would not be able to feel any special aura from it. Is this it? Zhuoxiao Duo picked up the multicolored stone. The moment it came into contact with the skin of his palm, a surge of life energy gushed into his body like a tidal wave. All the fatigue and negative statuses from the fierce battle were swept away. Moreover, all the bodily functions that he had lost were instantly replenished. It was a miraculous creation. After everything that had happened last night and made up for all the losses, this multicolored stone no longer had any mystical luster. Lying quietly in Zhuoxiao's palm, it was no different from an ordinary stone. Good stuff. Zhuoxiao Duo was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. With this thing, I will truly be immortal from now on. Under the guidance of the little dragon, he first arrived at the big scorpion's nest, where the big scorpion slept. Covering his nose, he finally took out the rest of the multicolored stone, which was even bigger, and then hurriedly went out. This scorpion is too smelly. It doesn't pay attention to personal hygiene, just like many single dogs. No wonder it can't find a wife. It's still a virgin even though it's in its 30s. Zhuoxiao Duo muttered to himself. This guy didn't have any self-awareness. The smell of his feet in his room could make people faint. He had been ridiculed by his parents, Zhuoxiaoyan, and even Li Chenglong many times. At this moment, he had already chosen to forget. What should we do? Holding the 2 multicolored stones in his hands, Zhuoxiao Duo couldn't bear to put them down. This big piece can be buried under the mountain range of the Void Extermination Tower. There will be a surprise in the future. Xiao Long suggested enthusiastically, as for this small one, you can carry it with you in case you need it. You've personally experienced the effects of this thing for yourself just now. That's a good idea. Zhuoxiao Duo followed his advice and immediately placed the large multicolored stone at the bottom of the mountain range of the void-destroying pagoda. Xiao Long would take care of the follow-up matters, and he would just be a 1-second porter. Then, Zhuoxiao Duo hurried back to the other side and continued to mine. Xiao Long, on the other hand, continued to move the ley lines while sweating profusely. He was a real porter, completely different from Zhuoxiao Duo, who could only move in a second. And let me explain it here. Earth veins are different from dragon veins. First, there are earth veins. When the earth veins gather to a certain extent, the mountains, rivers, and lakes become one with the earth veins. Only then can a dragon vein be formed. Where there are dragon veins, there must be earth veins. But where there are earth veins, there may not be dragon veins. The two should not be confused. And neither man nor dragon noticed it. Just after Zhuoxiaoduo left the void-destroying pagoda, the mountain range in the void-destroying pagoda showed a slow but subtle change that was faintly visible to the naked eye. The shape was still the same, but the whole thing showed signs of shrinking inch by inch. This shrinking frequency was extremely slow, and it was really shrinking inch by inch. So much so that when Xiao Long finished his work and sent in a new ley line, he did not notice it. And this kind of contraction was still ongoing. No one knew when it would end. In addition, a strong and turbulent spiritual aura of life slowly emerged in the void-destroying pagoda. It was dense and surging, and gradually filled the entire space of the void-destroying pagoda, and every corner at this process was also slow and orderly, and it was difficult to be noticed. But the space of the void-destroying pagoda was always so small. This kind of majestic spiritual aura was getting thicker and thicker, and it was impossible to not be noticed. It was just that no one knew when it would happen. At the moment when Zhuoxiaoduo got the multicolored stone in the outside world, the flood witch, who felt that the negative state had been eliminated, suddenly felt that her aura was steadily increasing. At this moment, it had reached an unprecedented height. The strength of the power of fate almost made the flood witch feel like she had an epiphany. It's happening again. The flood witch was speechless. One moment, it was replenishing, and the next moment, it was drawing back and forth without stopping. What was going on? He had already guessed that the problem was with his godson and godson, but he had never heard of such a phenomenon when taking in a godson. Even though the flood witch was so experienced that no one in the whole continent could compare to her, she was still confused. She only vaguely guessed. Could it be that someone had hung this matter on the heavenly way circulation array? But for such a small matter, to hang the heavenly way circulation array, wasn't it too much of a fuss? She had never seen such extravagance. However, what was comforting was that with the frequency of this situation, the great flood witch gradually figured out a set of methods to slightly avoid it. That was to open up another space in her own divine soul, leaving a part of the space in power. Well, she could use the rest as usual. She would replenish this part, and the excess would overflow and be used by herself. She would draw. That was all. Unless it was a special kind of draw, it wouldn't affect the flood witch's strength. This was originally a helpless move. The flood witch racked her brains to come up with this method. And it was feasible, to be honest. The flood witch had never used her brain like this in her life, but this time, she had no choice but to use her brain. But what she didn't expect was that the path she had never taken before, in order to cope with this strange phenomenon of replenishing and drawing, she came up with this strange method, was exactly the path she had dreamed of taking before. The embryonic form of beheading 3 corpses. As long as she continued and slowly perfected it, she could become a saint by beheading 3 corpses. This was a path that no one in the Wu people had ever taken since ancient times. The Wu people had always cultivated their bodies, which could move mountains and fill seas, and fight against heaven and earth. They had never cultivated their divine souls before. And the Wu people's divine souls weren't suitable for cultivating another path. However, the great flood witch was forced to go down this path by being whipped while replenishing his energy. Of course, the flood witch didn't realize that she had made great progress. She only felt that the method she figured out seemed to be useful. Even her brain seemed to have become smarter. Sure enough, the reason why I'm the #1 in the world is that my brain is still very useful. After a while, Zhuoxiaoduo had dug out almost all the top-grade jade of astral souls. She continued to dig down, and found the top-grade astral souls jade at the lower level. The top-grade astral souls jade was the same size as a millstone. It was completely black, without a layer of stone covering it. Zhuoxiaoduo was so excited that he was trembling all over. Good stuff, absolutely good stuff. Every piece was the size of a millstone, and there were thousands of them here. Zhuoxiaoduo threw them into the Tower of Space Destruction one by one. It was a pleasant surprise, but Zhuoxiaoduo still had some hope. Since there were so many top-grade jade of astral souls here, Would there be a higher-grade jade of geocentric astral souls jade? This time, it wasn't that Zuoxiao Duo was greedy. To Zuoxiao Duo, the top-grade jade of astral souls was already beyond his level. The higher-grade jade of geocentric astral souls jade was useless even if he had it. It would be a waste if he used it. He wanted it for another reason. Finally, when they reached the most central position, the star soul jade gave off a different feeling. The jade of astral souls here are purplish red and black. They look like ripe grapes. Zuoxiao Duo could clearly feel that the quality of the jade of astral souls jade was higher. Moreover, there weren't many jade of astral souls of this quality. There were only dozens of them. At a glance, 36 of these stones were stacked together like a small tower in the middle of the mountain range. Zuoxiao Duo carefully moved them away. There was a round stone in the middle. It was about the size of an ordinary watermelon. It was transparent purple and shone with a mysterious fluorescent light. This should be the jade of geocentric astral souls. It's also something that Principal Yi and the others need to treat their injuries. Zuoxiao Duo was overjoyed. Such a big piece, it should be enough. Zuoxiao Duo happily put away the purple jade of astral souls. How could he not know that the 36 purplish-black, grape-toned large stones from before were already geocentric star soul jades? And this purplish transparent star soul jade was already in existence of another meaning. Zuoxiao Duo finally finished excavating the entire mine. After repeatedly confirming that he had not missed anything, he realized that he had excavated half a mountain. This is so fucking tiring. Zuoxiao Duo lay comfortably in the belly of the mountain. He could feel that the soil under the strange purplish transparent stones was also filled with rich spiritual energy. It was also a little purple. It has been nourished by the jade of geocentric astral souls for so long. It must be something good. Since it's something good, I can't let it go. Therefore, he took out the heavenly witchcraft copper shovel and shoveled a few dozen tons into the Tower of Annihilation. When he felt that there was no more profit to be gained from this place, Zuoxiao Duo finally left unwillingly. How nice would it be if there were a few more mines like this? I'm not afraid of being tired. What's a little hard work? Zuoxiao Duo was still a little dissatisfied. I'm a man, so I should do more of this kind of hard work. Not long after he left, the last earth vein was also taken away by Xiao Long. As the earth vein disappeared completely, there was a loud boom. And the entire mountain collapsed. That this man and dragon had far surpassed the level of a thief who would not leave empty-handed, 9 feet higher, and feather-plucking swallows. They had emptied an entire mountain and even stolen the earth veins and earth chi that had been immersed in this place for countless years. They were the thieves of the century, stealing from heaven and earth. With the 5-colored stone in hand, Zuoxiao Duo was in perfect condition at all times. Almost immediately, he entered the previous mode of leveling up and fighting monsters. Along the way, all kinds of heaven and earth treasures and all kinds of spiritual herbs on the ground and underground were swept clean. Chapter 790. All the demonic beasts that he encountered were killed, skinned, and sucked out of their bones. However, it was no longer like a swarm of locusts that were swept clean. Of course, it was not that Zuoxiao Duo was no longer greedy. It was just that he had set his sights higher now. Demonic beasts below the nascent soul transformation stage were nothing in his eyes. Even though the space in the Tower of Annihilation was vast, it would take time to clean up those small fries. If he had the time, he might as well look for higher-level demonic beasts to hunt, look for higher-level heavenly materials and earthly treasures, or look for teammates. But after advancing for several hundred li, Zuoxiao Duo flew to the sky dozens of times to check, but he didn't see a single human figure, nor did he hear any human voice. Helpless, he had to continue to act alone. Finally, after rushing into a mountain, Zuoxiao Duo encountered another head-on attack. This time, it was a demonic beast at the Demon King realm. Moreover, it was at the peak of the Demon King realm. Its strength was several times more terrifying than the Centipede King in the Starry Mountains. In just one blow, Zuoxiao Duo was sent flying. All the bones in his body were almost broken. Knowing that he was no match for the demonic beast, Zuoxiao Duo naturally ran for his life. However, his escape speed was not as fast as the demonic beast. Finally, when he turned around the foot of a mountain, he fought for a gap and was able to enter the Tower of Annihilation. Damn, that was too dangerous. Zhuoxiaoduo looked at the bloody flesh on his body and hurriedly took the multicolored stone. It was truly miraculous. In the blink of an eye, his physical body had already recovered. He was completely healed. Zhuoxiaoduo stood up and moved his body to check his condition. There was still a lingering fear in his heart. Damn, is this still the trial area of the nascent soul transformation stage? There is such a thing in the trial area of the nascent soul transformation stage. It is trying to kill me. Zhuoxiaoduo grimaced. He did not know that in this area, there was actually a demon king who was more powerful than this demonic beast. After countless years of evolution, the demon king's strength was completely different from before. Since it's already dusk, I might as well cultivate inside the tower. Without further ado, Zhuoxiaoduo began to cultivate. He spent 30 days in the Tower of Annihilation. Well, it was only one night outside. After Xiao Long continuously shifted the earth veins, the flow of time inside the tower changed again. One day outside was equivalent to 2 months inside the tower. While Zhuoxiaoduo was concentrating on cultivating, Xiao Long was not idle. He was still working hard outside. Xiao Long was now extremely enthusiastic and hardworking. Those countless beeps. Boss's beeps. I'm about to get them. But on one hand, he was exhausted from working, but on the other hand, he was never tired. On the other hand, he was filled with fantasies. And he was filled with happiness. Xiao Long was an illusory spirit body. Even if he encountered a powerful demon king, he would not be able to see him. Well, the main thing was that the other party could not see him at all. As long as he found the earth veins, he would not hesitate to break them up and then forcefully drag them away. This place was completely different from the outside world. There was no heaven way to control things like robbing earth veins. After entering this space, Xiao Long felt that his robber nature had completely recovered, even stronger than before. Zhuoxiaoduo cultivated for a night. Xiao Long had already shifted 4 small earth veins from the outside into the tower. For Xiao Long, these earth veins that had not yet formed into dragon veins were not difficult at all. He directly broke them up and took them away. It was easy and joyful. During this night, Zhuoxiaoduo Xiao was extravagant. He used the supreme grade jade of astral souls to make a couch. He placed his hands on his head and used the 3-hearted jade of astral souls to wantonly absorb the pure spiritual energy of the supreme grade jade of astral souls. He successfully raised his cultivation to the high level of nascent soul. He carefully crawled out and looked around. He found that the huge raging bull demonic beast was not far away. When it saw Zhuoxiaoduo reappear, it immediately rushed towards him. Zhuoxiaoduo used his body movement technique to fight with it. He even used the cat hammer to launch a sneak attack. However, he used all his strength to smash the raging bull demonic beast's body, but it could not break through its defense. After fighting for a few minutes, Zhuoxiaoduo ran away again. The demonic beast roared and chased after him. However, after chasing him for dozens of miles, Zhuoxiaoduo disappeared again. This cycle repeated over and over again. This reverse hunting battle lasted for 2 days. Zhuoxiaoduo had already started to suppress the nascent soul realm for the 5th time in the Tower of Annihilation. However, with this level of strength, he was still helpless against the raging bull demonic beast. He was not even qualified to resist. The raging bull demonic beast slowly lost interest in this little guy. What's the point of fighting and disappearing? Can't young people be a little more virtuous? Legend has it that one would rather die than submit to force. When Zhuoxiaoduo crawled out again, he found that the raging bull demonic beast had already returned to its nest. Zhuoxiaoduo went closer to provoke the raging bull demonic beast, but the raging bull demonic beast ignored him. Do whatever you want. Go and harm others. I want to sleep now. This was not a guess. The raging bull demonic beast king's spiritual energy clearly conveyed this message. Believe it or not, this place is about to collapse. You'll be finished if you stay here. Do you want to consider going out with me? Get lost. The raging bull demonic beast's spiritual energy roared. Fine, I'll get lost. Zhuoxiao duo simply gave up on this area and crossed over the mountain ridges. According to the usual script, the raging bull demonic beast king would follow me and become my mount, free and unfettered. However, this place did not follow the script. I can't do anything. I've already wasted a lot of time with this raging bull demonic beast. I'd better hurry and find others. In this kind of environment, even I've encountered dangerous situations. Their realm is probably even worse. Along the way, he plundered heaven and earth treasures. He grew more and more tired of those low-level treasures. Not only did he not want them, he did not even bother to look at them. This trial space was really too big. If he delayed the high-level treasures because of these low-level treasures, the gains would not make up for the losses. Following the route that Xiao Long had planned, Zhuoxiao duo plundered all the treasures along the way and advanced aggressively. In front of them, there was a huge mountain that pierced the sky. Boss, that mountain actually has a dragon vein, and there's a lot of good stuff. Let's go. Zhuoxiao duo waved his hand. Leave nothing behind. Yu Moyan wiped off the blood on his sword and put it back into its scabbard. Then he collected the interspatial rings and weapons of the people in front of him. He did not know if it was a coincidence or not, but he met people. Moreover, he met the disciples of the Dao League and the Umno Alliance at the same time. There were a total of 4 people on both sides. When Yu Moyan arrived, the 4 of them had already been fighting for a long time. It seemed that there was a jade moon fruit here. The 4 of them would decide who would get it based on the outcome of the battle. After Yu Moyan understood, he immediately attacked and killed all 4 of them. Then he expressionlessly found the jade moon fruit and plucked 2 of them. He directly swallowed one and continued forward. As for killing these 4 people, Yu Moyan did not feel guilty at all. If you can kill me, then my things will be yours. Survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. At this moment, Gao Qiao and Wanli Xiu were running for their lives. Yes, these 2 girls were very lucky to have gotten rid of the demonic beasts that were chasing them. They were also very lucky to have met each other. The only pity was that when the 2 girls met, Wanli Xiu was being chased by more than 10 geniuses of the Umno Alliance. Gao Qiao of course went to help her. However, as soon as they met, she was dragged away by Wanli Xiu. We are not their match. When Wanli Xiu said this, Gao Qiao's sword had already been knocked away by her opponent. As expected, there was a huge difference in strength between them. The 2 girls could only think of running for their lives. Behind them, the 12 geniuses of the Umno Alliance were chasing desperately with shining eyes. The 2 geniuses of the Astral Souls continent were actually both beauties. Yet if it was one-on-one, Wanli Xiu was confident that she would not be afraid of any one of the 12 geniuses. She could even kill them. However, when facing 2 of them at the same time, Wanli Xiu could gain the upper hand and win. However, if the opponents were 3 or more, she would definitely lose. At most, she could drag one of them down with her. But now, there were 12 of them. Even if she wanted to drag one of them down with her, she might not be able to do it. As for Gao Qiao, when Gao Qiao rushed out, Wanli Xiu knew that this girl's cultivation was just so. She was even weaker than herself. Rather than saying that she was a help, it was better to say that she was a burden. The most important thing now was to run away first. Fortunately, women's bodies were originally light and agile. They usually practiced the light body technique more and more. Even if the opponents did not stop chasing, the 2 girls could still hold on. But in the long run, this was not a solution. Women were more skilled than men in the light body technique, but their physical endurance and cultivation depth were often inferior to male cultivators of the same level. And the 12 people in front of them clearly had evil intentions, chasing after them all the way. In such a dense mountain forest, there was almost no road. At first, the 2 girls flew in the sky. Later, they landed on the ground and ran wildly. Flying in the sky was not only an obvious target, but it also consumed too much spiritual energy. It was better to land and use the complicated terrain to escape. That would give them more room to maneuver. Along the way, the 2 girls ran. Every once in a while, Gao Qiao would leave a secret signal on the side. Even when they were chased to the end, Gao Qiao did not give up. After drinking another bottle of life spirit water, Gao Qiao pulled Wan Lixiu's hand and said, "Run over there." On the other side, there was a sky-piercing mountain. It was extremely steep. In this mountain range, it was like a crane in a flock of chickens. Over there? Wan Lixiu was hesitant. There must be high-level demonic beasts over there. Moreover, the mountain was too high and too steep. Now that they were exhausted, they might lose everything if they made a single mistake. Up there, we'll have more room to maneuver and maintain the initiative, Gao Qiao said while running wildly. When we get there, we'll look down from the high ground. Then, we'll find a place that's steep and dangerous enough. As long as we throw down a few big rocks, we'll be able to create a big commotion. It'll be easier for others to hear us. We can't do it here. The mountain here is too steep. The shrubs are also dense. I'm afraid a big rock will only roll a few times before it gets caught in the shrubs. That place is steep enough. Moreover, there's a cliff. Chapter 791. As long as we stand at the top of the mountain, we'll be more obvious targets. After running for such a long time, we don't have much strength left. If we continue to chase blindly, we'll really be finished when we're exhausted. Now, we can only take a risk. Even if the people from the Wizard Alliance come, we'll accept it. If we don't fight, we'll only be waiting for death. At this time, the pursuers were only 100 meters away. Wan Lixiu took a deep breath and pulled Gao Qiao toward the mountain on the other side. This time, she didn't hold back at all. She swallowed a handful of elixirs and forcibly restored her strength. For a time, the two women were like two slender lightning bolts, flying in the void and breaking through space. In the blink of an eye, they had rushed to the left side of the mountain and rushed all the way up crazily. They are exhausted. The geniuses of the UMNO alliance behind them were overjoyed when they saw that the two women had suddenly shaken off their pursuers. Obviously, they want to make a last stand. This mountain is the end of this chase. Everyone was a genius and clever person. When they saw each other's choice, they knew what each other was thinking. The 12 nascent soul transformation stage geniuses of the UMNO alliance immediately chased after them as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Let's enjoy first and then kill. I'll tell you in advance. Don't make it bloody and make it boring. Of course. Don't worry. When the time comes, we will divide into two groups and draw lots to decide the first one. Zwa, the mountain in front of us not only has a lot of earth veins, but also a dragon vein. Xiao Long wagged his tail and pointed his small claws at the mountain in front of them, which was hidden in the clouds halfway up the mountain. This mountain seems to have demonic qi. Zwa Xiaoduo took a look. From the qi examination technique, this mountain was full of demonic qi. It was not a good place. There are also many good things. Xiao Long said, I'd better plan a safe path first. I don't want to meet those great demon kings again. Zwa Xiaoduo felt a little discouraged. Originally, he felt that he was already very powerful and could defeat all the soul transformation stage demonic beasts. However, he didn't expect that a mere demon king would be able to torture him until he was half dead and had to flee for his life. It was really too hurtful. Under Xiao Long's planning, Zwa Xiaoduo carefully looted all the way to the top of the mountain. Xiao Long, on the other hand, quietly burrowed into the ground to shift the earth veins. Zwa Xiaoduo and Xiao Long had the same plan. They would go up from this side and collect as much good stuff as they could along the way. Then, they would go down from the other side and collect everything they could along the way. Since they were already here, how could they leave empty-handed at this way? Nothing would be left behind, and Xiao Long would have enough time to collect the ley lines. It was the best of both worlds, taking advantage of both. Because they planned before acting, Zwa Xiaoduo deliberately avoided the nests of several demon kings and began to loot that, however, they hadn't even reached the halfway point of the mountain yet. Rumble. Rumble. Zwa Xiaoduo's spirits were lifted. It seemed that there was a movement over there? Someone? Or a demonic beast? Zwa Xiaoduo very straightforwardly gave up on plundering this area. His body was like an arrow that left the bow as he charged forward. At this moment, he was already using his full strength. If there were people fighting, At least 1/3 of them would be people from the Astral Souls continent. What if they were at a disadvantage? If the rescue was delayed because of a herb, wouldn't it be a great pity? It had to be said that Zhou Xiaoduo was a person who put himself first most of the time. He wasn't so calculative. Zhou Xiaoduo's movements were as fast as lightning as he dashed all the way. In the blink of an eye, he had already broken through the clouds and continued to fly upwards for more than 5,000 meters. As he gradually reached the top, the mountain range was covered in frost, and the higher parts were still covered in snowflakes. Zhou Xiaoduo stepped on the layer of ice and reached the top of the mountain. The cold here had already exceeded the limits of what an ordinary person could endure. Even ancient martial art practitioners who were below the embryonic breathing realm of the origin elixir realm would be frozen into ice in a short time. Zhou Xiaoduo silently used the flaming sun scripture to resist the cold. He stuck his head out and looked down. He could faintly see movement below, but there was no sound of people shouting. There was only the rumbling sound of rocks falling continuously. It doesn't seem like a battle between demonic beasts. If it were two demonic beasts fighting, their roars would have been heard long ago. Zhou Xiaoduo's heart suddenly tightened. His body descended like a meteor. If it was a battle between the Tao League and the Umno Alliance, he might be able to take advantage of it. It was true that Zhou Xiaoduo put people first. However, if it didn't involve the lives of his teammates, he would still look at money. He would still be calculative about what he should be calculative about. Gao Qiaoer and Wanli Xiu tried their best to climb up the cliff. At this moment, their spiritual energy was almost depleted. Previously, in order to push their bodies to their limits, they had taken too many pills in one go. Even if they forced themselves to take them again, the effect would be minimal. Wanli Xiu gathered her remaining energy and shouted. She slashed down a huge rock that was hundreds of thousands of kilograms that was hanging outside. The huge rock rumbled as it rushed down. The sound of it hitting the ground echoed continuously. However, it was a pity that after a while, no one was coming. There was also no sound from anyone. Below, the silhouettes of the 12 Umno Alliance geniuses had appeared. They were only a few hundred meters away from them. Their faces were all pale. However, there was an inexplicable excitement in their eyes. The two women's hearts were cold. Wanli Xiu was silent for a moment. Then she said lightly, "Don't run. If we continue to run, we will really run out of energy. If we face them again, we can only wait to be slaughtered. We have created such a big commotion, but no one has come. Obviously the area is too big. There is no one nearby." Wanli Xiu took a deep breath and said, "Let's just end it here. Try to drag two of them down with us. If we continue to waste our energy, I'm afraid we won't even be able to drag them down." Gao Qiaoer smiled faintly and said, "Life and death are predestined. Let's fight to the death here. If two of us die, it will be worth it. If we can earn more interest, this battle will not be in vain." Then she opened the space ring and took out the last few bottles of life water and origin spirit recovery pills. The two women divided them. Then they raised their heads and gulped them down. Wanli Xiu slapped a handful of ice and snow on her face. She gritted her teeth and said, "I will try to take 3 of them. Just do your best." Gao Qiaoer smiled, "I know I will only be a burden. I will try my best. If I really can't do it, then help me." In the face of life and death, the two women were very calm. Since they were in a desperate situation, why not fight? On the cliff, Wanli Xiu held a long sword. She took a deep breath and operated her martial arts. She tried to recover her strength as much as possible. She wanted to take a few more enemies with her. However, Long Yusheng's appearance uncontrollably appeared in front of her. "It is difficult to have a future in this life. Maybe I can't accompany you. I hope you will take good care of yourself for the rest of your life." With a whoosh, a Umno Alliance genius jumped onto the cliff. He had a playful smile on his face and said, "Why aren't you running?" Wanli Xiu was not in the mood to talk nonsense with him. She was still operating her origin qi and trying to digest the pills she had just swallowed. However, there was only disdain in her heart. If it were us, we would have already taken action. We were afraid that the other side would have more time to recover. This guy actually talked like a cat playing with a mouse. How could he be a UMNO Alliance genius with such a brain? The UMNO Alliance's geniuses are really not that high. Gao Xiaoer smiled and said softly, "May I know the name of the UMNO Alliance's genius in front of me? I have to say, you are really good looking." We all thought that the UMNO Alliance's geniuses did not look like humans. I didn't expect that all of you are quite good looking. Wanli Xiu did not answer, but Gao Xiaoer chose to respond to her too nicely. Between the two of them, Wanli Xiu's fighting ability was much higher than hers. If she wanted to win, she would have to see how much Wanli Xiu could recover. As for Gao Xiaoer's advantage, it was more about her ability to use money and power. She smiled sweetly and used words to confuse the enemy. If she could delay for a period of time before attacking, it would allow Wanli Xiu to recover more strength and have more capital to play with her life. The UMNO Alliance's young man had a hooked nose. His eyes fell on Gao Xiaoer's pretty face. Gao Xiaoer smiled faintly. She stroked her hair and said, "What are you looking at?" The UMNO Alliance's young man's Adam's apple could be seen swallowing. Just now, when Gao Xiaoer stroked her hair, she showed her feminine beauty. His heart was burning. He could not help but say, "I am Yi Zhongyun. What is your name?" At this moment, the remaining 11 people had also climbed up and formed a circle. Gao Xiaoer did not seem to see the others. She only focused on Yi Zhongyun. She sighed and said, "We are on opposite sides. It's our fate to be like this. But to know the name of a genius of the UMNO Alliance before I die, it's worth it to die." She smiled sadly and said, "The night sky is vast and deep with white clouds. The world changes, but the sky never changes. What a good name." Then she smiled bitterly and said softly, Senior Brother Yi, how are you going to deal with us?" Yi Zhongyun stared at her face and said, "What is your name?" Gao Xiaoer's eyes were watery. She said pitifully, "My family calls me Xiaoer. Brother Zhongyun, how about you call me Xiaoer too? If I can be called by a pet name, it will be like being at home. It will be comforting." Her voice was very soft, and her words were spoken very slowly. Her voice was graceful and extremely pleasant to the ears. Although it was a dead end, she was still trying her best to stall for time in a subtle way. Yi Zhongyun said, "Xiaoer. What a nice name." On one side, a short and fat young man of the UMNO Alliance said impatiently, "Yi Zhongyun, what are you talking about? Hurry up and take them down. Could it be that you actually want to cultivate a relationship before you force yourself on her?" Chapter 792. The other youths all looked at the two girls with burning eyes and swallowed their saliva. Obviously, they already saw the two girls as theirs and couldn't wait any longer. When they were in the UMNO Alliance, they spent most of their time training and fighting. Everyone was surrounded by their fellow countrymen and classmates. Even if they had beast desires, they still had to restrain themselves. Now, facing the two beauties of the astral souls, they didn't have to restrain themselves anymore. They were enemies of life and death. No matter what they did, they should do it. And the two beauties in front of them were rare beauties even in the UMNO Alliance High Martial Arts School that they studied in. It must be said that in a war between races or countries, the so-called rape and pillage was a very normal thing. It wasn't that there was no bottom line, but in that kind of life and death environment, all the evil in human nature would be magnified to the maximum. The reason why the war between races was so tragic was because of this. Usually, after the enemy's army had passed through, the prosperous cities would immediately turn into ruins. Young and strong children would be killed, and the slightly beautiful women would be raped, killed, and taken away. That the so-called kindness of human nature, the so-called compassion and justice, all had no place in this kind of situation. Not only the warriors of the UMNO Alliance would do this, but the warriors of the astral souls would also make the same choice. Of course, there were also those who abided by the bottom line, but those people were definitely the minority. They could be said to be as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. I knew that there would be countless saints jumping out at this point, but it was futile to explain this part. Sigh. Gao Xiaoer sighed and said to the short and fat youth, "Brother, why are you in such a hurry? We sisters know very well what kind of fate we have today. Our last bit of effort is in vain, so we can only accept our fate. Don't you think that? If we talk, the result will be better? Gao Qiao smiled bitterly. There was a kind of helplessness in the wind, and said, "In the end, we are just two weak women. In our hearts, we don't want to participate in this kind of war. But this is our fate, there is nothing we can do. Today, in this kind of hopeless situation, don't we want to live?" Gao Qiao tried her best to move her lips and tongue to stall for time. She said, "Don't tell me. You only want to kill us?" Just because he wanted to satisfy his bestial desires for once. Did he have to force us to the point that there was nothing left to live for? Do you really want to force us to fight to the death with you? In that case, we will certainly die, but what good will come to you? Or rather, where's the fun in that? The short and fat youth's eyes were burning. "I think you're just stalling for time." Gao Qiao laughed. "If we really had the strength to kill you, why would we need to run? Why waste your remaining energy to create a commotion and carry out that futile attempt? Isn't it just hoping for a fluke? Now that your hope has been shattered, you're already in despair in this hopeless situation. Even if you try to stall for time, what benefits can you gain?" It had to be said that Gao Qiao's ability to see through people's hearts and speak eloquently was extremely effective at this moment. She fought for a bit of hope in the face of death. His words made the other UMNO Alliance youngsters show expressions of approval. That's right, with just these two delicate girls in front of them, even if they stalled for time, what could they change? In this kind of hopeless situation, could they still turn the tables around? However, the short and fat youth's face became more and more serious. He slowly pulled out his sword and said lightly, "Even though what you said seems to make a lot of sense, even though I don't know what your intention is in stalling for time, my instincts tell me that I can't let you continue." Gao Qiao smiled sadly. "Are you going to kill me immediately?" She stuck out her chest and slightly leaned to the side, standing there gracefully. Intentionally or unintentionally, the beautiful curves of a woman's body were revealed without any concealment. As she tilted her face slightly and let the cold wind blow on her face, her beautiful hair immediately fluttered and her clothes fluttered. She was extremely beautiful, stunning everyone. At this moment, Gao Qiao could be said to have displayed her beauty and the charm that belonged to a woman to the extreme. Basically, every beautiful woman knew how to make use of her beauty, and Gao Qiao was one of the best among them. With just a simple tilt of her body, her originally messy hair fluttered in the wind. Her drooping clothes, with the help of the wind, turned into a beautiful fairy descending to the mortal world, her clothes fluttering in the wind. The youngster's eyes became even more fiery. That waist, that chest, that face, that butt, that style, that temperament. Some of the boys felt that even if they killed this woman after today's pleasure, they would still be unable to forget her beauty at this moment for the rest of their lives. They would linger in their dreams and forget to return. The short and fat youth's eyes were also intoxicated for a moment, but he suddenly ordered, "Attack together! Hurry up! Don't let her delay any longer. When we catch them, you can do whatever you want. But at this moment, don't forget that they are still strong enemies. They are not some weak girls, everyone be careful." A loud roar instantly woke up the rest of the people. The 12 of them straightened their swords together, and their auras were also reactivated. However, at this moment, Wanli Xiu had already finished adjusting her breath. Gao Qiao's eyes flashed with a trace of fierceness. She knew that she had succeeded. She had achieved her goal. Just now, when she was speaking and acting, there were clearly some people who had tender feelings for the fairer sex in their eyes, and some who felt that they could not bear to kill her. And this kind of feeling was the atmosphere that Gao Qiao wanted to create. Once the enemy had this kind of mentality, whether they had realized it or not, then when she and Wanli Xiu attacked, they might only be able to kill 3 or 4 people to accompany them to the grave. But under this kind of mentality, the 2 of them might be able to kill 5 or 6 people. Or even more. This was a woman's greatest advantage, her greatest charm. A woman's greatest charm was never how much money she earned, but a beautiful woman who could kill a man who should not have died. This was the best display of a woman's charm on the battlefield. Of course, this was the best result. The two of them would have to stop here and die prematurely. Gao Qiao was very clear that even if she continued to speak, the effect would not be better than this moment. If she spoke more, it might even make these men wake up and feel that they had been fooled and become angry out of humiliation. Now was the best time to attack. However, even though Gao Qiao had quietly pulled out her sword, she still said pitifully, "Can I have a request?" On the other side, someone subconsciously replied, "What request?" Gao Qiao said sadly, "We sisters are destined to die today. But can I ask you guys? If we are no match for them, when you attack, don't hit our faces. Thank you." As she said that, she actually bowed slightly. "We are girls after all. Even if we can't avoid death, we still hope to keep our faces intact. You guys should understand that what women care the most is none other than their faces." The few men on the other side nodded lightly. "Okay, we promise you." Gao Qiao said, "Thank you. Even though before I die, I will be. But this mercy is enough for me to be touched." Her heart calmed down again. With this restriction, the chances of her and Wanli Xiu getting more scapegoats would be greater. This bunch of stinky men would definitely not hit their chests and lower bodies for their later desires. Now, even their faces had become a little more scrupulous. Gao Qiao took a deep breath and stood back to back with Wanli Xiu, saying, "Everyone please." Her long sword shook, and a cold light flashed. The sword in Wanli Xiu's hand had already shot out like a bomb. The battle started instantly. Wanli Xiu was going all out from the start. Although Gao Qiao had a long sword in her hand, she was not in a hurry to join the battle. First of all, her combat power was not enough. Second of all, she had successfully created an atmosphere where the geniuses of the Wizard Alliance would not attack her, or at least not kill her. As long as she was there, she would be able to tie down the opponent's manpower more effectively than fighting in a battle. This operation was undoubtedly better than directly joining the battle. It would reduce the pressure on Wanli Xiu by a lot. This was a very subtle psychological manipulation. Gao Qiao grasped this balance very precisely. She seemed to be on guard, but in reality, she was constantly paying attention to the battle behind her. As long as Wanli Xiu gave the signal, she would immediately turn around and use the most decisive method to take back her capital. Her target was definitely not the people in front of her who didn't attack her and were restrained by her, but the people behind her who were fighting with Wanli Xiu. Once she turned around, she would have the chance to kill the enemies to the greatest extent because of the unexpected outburst. Wanli Xiu's sword wind was getting stronger little by little. She pursed her lips tightly and fought meticulously. She was accumulating power. She was fighting and accumulating power at the same time. Her current attack mode did not have the lethality to kill the enemies. She could only wait until the sword net was formed. When she was most confident, she would risk her life to fight. Then, Gao Qiao would move back and attack at the same time. She would use all her strength to attack and then self-explode. She would take away as many as she could. As for leaving behind corpses to be humiliated, Wanli Xiu did not think of this possibility. Gao Qiao also did not think of it. The sound of weapons colliding continued to sound. Wanli Xiu's accumulation of power had gradually reached the peak. She was about to launch a thunderous attack. At this delicate moment, a voice full of surprise sounded from the sky. "Wow, damn. Xiu, I can actually see you being bullied on such a remote ice mountain peak. This is too unexpected. I don't know how long Yuxing will thank me later." This voice came from the sky and was getting closer and closer. Chapter 793. Hearing this voice, Gao Qiao and Wanli Xiu were overjoyed. He was so surprised that his heart was about to explode. "Boss?" "Zwa." Wanli Xiu burst out with all her strength. Gao Qiao also attacked at the same time. The moment their attacks surged, they forced the enemy to retreat. Then, they quickly retreated and faced the person who spoke. At this moment, their attacks were no longer about earning profits. Instead, they wanted to save their lives and ensure that they could reach the person who spoke at this moment. Their lives were saved. The only feeling in the hearts of the two women was excitement. They were so excited that they were about to explode. This kind of extreme joy of escaping death almost made the two of them faint. At the last moment of desperation, there was actually such a strong helper descending from the sky. In this desperate situation where the hope of receiving help had been extinguished, they were about to go to the extreme. The strongest helper had come. The person who came was, of course, Zhuoxiaoduo. The two women knew a lot of people. Even if the others happened to be there, it would be difficult for them to reverse the situation. Only Zhuoxiaoduo had the strength to do so. He had painstakingly climbed over the mountain and followed the sound from the top of the mountain. He had just arrived at this moment. If he had arrived 1 or 2 minutes later, Wanli Xiao and Gao Qiao would have self-detonated and risked their lives. Gao Qiao had racked her brains to stall for time. At this moment, she had received the most ample reward. If she had said a few words less, the battle at this moment would have been over. If the two women were already dead, even if Zhuoxiaoduo helped them take revenge, what was the point? Until the two women retreated, Zhuoxiaoduo descended from the sky. His feet touched the ground. His body didn't even sway. He had already floated in front of the two women, protecting Gao Qiao and Wanli Xiao behind him. Gao Qiao and Wanli Xiao gasped for breath. They couldn't help but sit down behind Zhuoxiaoduo. They suddenly relaxed and felt that there was no strength in their bodies. However, an incomparable sense of security rose from the bottom of their hearts. They were safe. Seeing the uninvited guest, the 12 members of the UMNO alliance immediately became alert. Seeing that this kid was wearing the same clothes as the two girls, it was obvious that he was also from the same school in the Astral Souls continent. They couldn't help but understand. It turned out that he was a nascent soul cultivator from the Astral Souls continent. Now, there were 12 people on their side and 3 on the other side. Only one of the two women was relatively difficult to deal with, so the 3 of them could easily take her down. As for the other woman, she was basically just an extra. If it was a one-on-one fight, they would have the upper hand. If it was a 2-on-1 fight, they would be able to take care of her. In this case, there were still 7 people left to deal with this man. Seeing that this man was familiar with the 2 girls, he should be a student of the same level. Even if he was stronger than the 2 girls, or even much stronger, the 7 of them should be able to take him down, right? No matter how one looked at it, there was no risk at all. Zhuoxiaoduo looked at the many people in front of him and couldn't help but be shocked. How did you all gather together? Can you teach me? What he was most depressed about now was that he couldn't find a team. How could they gather together in such a big area? If they continued to be separated like this, situations like Wanli Xiao and Gao Qiao being in danger would continue to happen. Even if they didn't encounter the people from the Tao League and the UMNO Alliance, encountering the demonic beasts in the ruins would still be very risky. Maybe even now, who knew how many people had already been killed? The 12 people on the opposite side all narrowed their eyes. This guy who ruined everyone's mood actually asked this question as soon as he arrived. In fact, the 12 people were also very confused. After they landed, they didn't walk for long before they met each other. Naturally, they joined forces. God knows how they got together. However, there was no need to tell this fellow about this. If it was a beautiful woman, it would still be interesting to interact with each other. But with a gigolo like you, we have no interest. None of us are interested in your type. Gao Qiao stood behind Zhuoxiaoduo and only felt safe. She bit her lips and said bitterly, "Boss, these guys are up to no good." Up to no good. Zhuoxiaoduo looked at them and only felt a strong murderous intent rising. However, he suddenly smiled and said, "You have good taste. Every one of you is like a man, up to no good when you see a beautiful woman. This is well done." On the opposite side, the short and fat young man narrowed his eyes and said, "Who are you?" Zhuoxiaoduo smiled and said leisurely, "I am your ancestor." The 12 people on the opposite side were all furious. In a flash, each of them held their weapons in their hands, overflowing with murderous intent. The short and fat young man took a deep breath and was about to give the order to attack. Zhuoxiaoduo's shout was like a clap of thunder in the sky. "If you want to fight, you can, but first, Take off your interspatial ring and give it to me. Otherwise, it would be a waste to break them later. The 12 people were so angry that their mouths were crooked. This bastard is arrogant. Go. The order to attack hadn't been given yet. The young man on the opposite side shouted again, Wait. What do you want now? I see that your faces don't look good. Zhuoxiaoduo was surprised to find that the death aura on the 12 people's faces was getting heavier and heavier since he came down. As his murderous intent grew stronger, the death aura on their faces also became heavier and heavier. Gradually, it became so thick that it was impossible to look at them. They were basically at death's door, and there was no way to avoid it. Zhuoxiaoduo tried to let them go in his heart, but the death aura on their bodies didn't decrease at all. In fact, it was increasing bit by bit. Before he came in, he was indeed warned by the golden-scaled witch, but so what? He actually had such thoughts. If he didn't kill them, why would he keep them to disgust himself? Did he, Zhuoxiaoduo, look like someone who would endure such humiliation? Besides, the king of Zhuolu said that he would take care of it. Besides, his parents should have gone back by now, right? Even he couldn't find his parents, how could the flood witch find them? Of course, the key was that the king of Zhuolu would take care of it. This sentence gave Zhuoxiaoduo a sense of security. The king of Zhuolu and the heavenly king of the right, the star-plucking emperor and the sky patrol minister, were on the same side. When the king of Zhuolu couldn't take care of it, everyone would definitely come out together to take care of it. So many people couldn't take care of the flood witch? Besides, how free could the flood witch be? Therefore, when Zhuoxiaoduo jumped down, he threw the threat of the flood witch to the back of his mind. The king of Zhuolu was taking care of it. I'll kill if I have to. What threat? Nonsense. What do you mean by not looking good? The short and fat young man was surprisingly interested. He actually reached out and stopped the people on his side. You know how to read faces? Yes, I do. I'm an expert in this. The short and fat young man showed a thoughtful look on his face and said, You see that we don't look good? Then look at us. Are there any of us who were separated from our family since childhood, or are we missing parents or one of our parents since childhood? Zhuoxiaoduo instinctively froze for a moment. He looked deeply at the short and fat young man and said, You lost your mother when you were young, lost your father when you were young. According to your appearance, your father died not long ago. Today, the aura of death is gathering on your face, and the gates of hell are open. You are destined to die. You, parents, are still alive. You achieved success when you were young, and your life was smooth sailing. Your luck was good, and you have never been wronged. But today, death is coming, and a great disaster is coming. He pointed to another person. You lost your mother when you were young, but your father is still alive. You have an older brother at home. Although you are full of the aura of death today, your father should be able to live a more comfortable life in the future. You lost your parents in an incident last year. You have a younger sister at home, but she is destined to wander around for the rest of her life. And all of this is because you are destined to rush into the gates of hell today, and there is no way to escape. Your mother was killed when you were 7 years old. Your father was killed when you were 12 years old in search of his enemy. Today, death is inevitable. There is no way to avoid it. You, parents, are still alive. You have a good family, and you are the only son in your family. But after you die today, your parents will follow you in at most 3 years. Zhuoxiaoduo pointed to the 12 people and talked about them one by one. He commented on everyone's facial features, speaking as if he was telling the truth, speaking frankly and confidently. However, every word he said shook the hearts of the people involved. He did not say anything about the aura of death today. After all, it had not come true yet. But the family situation, parent situation, personal encounters, and so on. Not a single word was wrong. There was no mistake. The short and fat young man stared at Zhuoxiaoduo with wide eyes. Suddenly, he asked in a hoarse voice, Are from Phoenix City? Zhuoxiaoduo narrowed his eyes and said, Greedy wolf sect? Am I right? The short and fat young man took a deep breath and suddenly asked sternly, Where is my junior sister Xianyi? Zhuoxiaoduo snorted and said, I read your faces just now. Is what I said accurate? The short and fat young man said angrily, "Of course what you said is accurate. But let me ask you, where is my junior sister Xianyi?" Of course what he said was accurate. This meant that he acknowledged Zhuo Xiaoduo's divination. What the short and fat young man said was, "Before you said that we were about to die, everything you said was accurate. But in Zhuo Xiaoduo's understanding it was different. As long as he killed all of you, then what he said before was accurate. All of you had acknowledged him. In that case, the providence points given to these 12 people would definitely belong to the Zhuo family." Thinking of this, Zhuo Xiaoduo suddenly became spirited and said casually, "Your junior sister is called Emo Xianyi? I remember that she was killed by someone. It seems to be the king of Zhongyuan." The short and fat young man said angrily, "The king of Zhongyuan? That's right. This time, you will probably be able to see your senior sister again." Zhuo Xiaoduo laughed. Even though the other party was about to die, Zhuo Xiaoduo still did not intend to tell the truth. "Go find your senior sister in hell. If you can't find her, then it's your impatience." Zhuo Xiaoduo laughed. "Come on, no need to say anything else. Let's fight." The short and fat young man said angrily, "I haven't finished speaking. What's the use of that?" Chapter 794. Zhuo Xiaoduo said matter-of-factly, "Are you brainless? Or is there something wrong with your brain? I've already said what I want to say. What does it matter to me whether you finish your words or not? What's more, even if you break the heavens, can you still escape death? All of you are doomed to die. That's what I said." Wan Lixio was panting behind Zhuo Xiaoduo. She couldn't help but laugh and said, "Our Zhuo is here. What's the difference if you say more or less? Anyway, you're all dead." As she spoke, Zhuo Xiaoduo had already rushed forward bravely and shouted, "Remember to be a ghost in front of the king of hell. I'm Zhuo Xiaoduo, nicknamed Iron Fist Young Master. When you're in front of the king of hell, don't be a muddle-headed ghost who doesn't even know the name of the person who killed you when others ask you how you died." As he spoke, the short and fat young man in front of him had been punched 3 meters away. "Iron Fist Young Master, Zhuo Xiaoduo, will remember you." Suddenly, the short and fat young man reacted, "You're Zhuo Xiaoduo? This is a misunderstanding." He suddenly remembered what he had told him before he came. If they encountered Zhuo Xiaoduo, they would retreat. They were all dumbfounded. How could they retreat now? They were already fighting head-on. "Misunderstanding my ass." Zhuo Xiaoduo scolded, "Go back and send your sister to us astral souls so that we can have a good time. Then come back and tell me that it's a misunderstanding. A bunch of trash." It was already irreconcilable. The 10 people on the opposite side also had the intention to fight with all their might. Another person gritted his teeth and came forward with his sword. "We'll tell you when we get back. The person we killed is Iron Fist Young Master." Ugh. Before he could finish speaking, his eyeball shattered with a potch sound. A small white jade gourd was embedded in his eye socket, and it exploded immediately. He let out a miserable howl and rolled on the ground in so much pain that he wished he were dead. That hidden weapon had entered his brain through his eyes. At this moment his brain was already a mess. Although he was still rolling, he was already a dead man nailed to the board. The moment the hidden weapon hit him, it had already announced his death. "Watch my iron fist." Zhuo Xiaoduo roared. He stood still in front of Wan Lixio and the other 2 girls and punched 3 times. Then, 7 or 8 small white jade gourds flew out silently. Then, the sword moved and Zhuo Xiaoduo shouted, "Watch my sword." The dragon gate kick under his feet attacked continuously at an unimaginable speed. Ouch! The 3 people on the opposite side covered their crotches and knelt down with twisted faces. As Zhuo Xiaoduo's cultivation increased, he became more and more proficient in the dragon kick. It was impossible to guard against and his strength was super strong. After 3 kicks, the 3 of them could directly make tomato egg soup without stirring. The other people hurriedly dodged but felt something under their feet. Before they could react, they had already exploded and screamed. This bastard, he used his iron fist and sword. In the end, it turned out to be a sneak attack using hidden weapons. The main thing was that Zhuo Xiaoduo's fame was deeply rooted in their hearts. They were already on guard against Zhuo Xiaoduo's shout. After hearing it, they subconsciously guarded against the iron fist and sword. In the end, they didn't know that it was not the case at all. What they guarded against did not come, and what they didn't guard against did not fall. This kind of tragedy was really speechless. If they didn't have such a warning before coming, although the outcome wouldn't be much better, it wouldn't be so easy. It could only be said that this was fate. Zhuoxiaoduo swung his long sword and slashed 3 times in a row, chopping off the heads of the 3 people who were holding onto their crotches and howling miserably. Then he kicked the 3 heads off the cliff with 3 peng-peng-pangs. However, he carefully kicked the bodies behind him. Xiao Er, search them and take their rings. But Wan Lixiu answered crisply. Gao Qiaoer, who was standing at the side, suddenly understood. No wonder Zhuoxiaoduo had so many miscellaneous things last time. It turned out that they were all from this. While Wan Lixiu was busy, another headless body was dragged over by Zhuoxiaoduo. Screams could be heard. The 8 people on the opposite side had already been killed by Zhuoxiaoduo. Wan Lixiu was busy and felt lucky. Fortunately, she didn't spar with Zhuo. If they really fought, she would definitely have avoided a loving education. She couldn't even defeat 3 people, but Zhuo dealt with 12 people alone and killed 8 of them in an instant. This combat power was simply off the charts. As the 8 people on the opposite side fell one after another, drops of luck points fell from the sky. Zhuoxiaoduo was in high spirits as he fought. This kind of battle was still the best. From inside to outside, there were gains everywhere. The other 4 people screamed and turned around to escape. TSK, I haven't even paid you for reading your fortune, and you want to run. How can there be such a logic in this world? Zhuoxiaoduo instantly unleashed his movement technique. With a speed that was 3 times faster than these people, he madly circled around. With 1 slash of his sword and 2 punches, he sent 2 people back. With 1 kick, he kicked another person's crotch and sent him flying back like a corpse. The short and fat young man looked at Zhuoxiaoduo in despair. We, the greedy wolves, won't forgive you. You talk too much. Zhuoxiaoduo chopped off his head with his sword. What's the use of saying this now? Is there any meaning to it? What a waste of saliva. Ignoring the pleas of the other 2, he killed them one by one with his sword. Search them. I feel that these guys must have something good on them. Zhuoxiaoduo said expectantly. He didn't hide his greedy face. Gao Qiaoer and Wan Lixiu both rolled their eyes. Boss Zhuo, you're a man. How can you let us 2 girls do this kind of bloody and dirty work? Wan Lixiu rolled her eyes. Zhuoxiaoduo also rolled his eyes. Xiao Ye, if you didn't say this, I wouldn't have realized this. Then you realize it now, right? Why don't you do it yourself? Wan Lixiu said. I mean, if you didn't say this, I wouldn't have realized that you're a girl. Gao Qiaoer suddenly burst out laughing and swayed back and forth. This sentence was a stroke of genius. How did Zhuoxiaoduo come up with it? Wan Lixiu was so angry that her breasts expanded by a cup size. She angrily threw the 12 rings to Zhuoxiaoduo. Here, you stingy boss. Nothing else? I'll leave the weapons to you too. Zhuoxiaoduo looked at the corpses expectantly. After confirming that there was nothing else, he kicked them all into the abyss. He also swept up the wind and snow to clean the cliff platform. Then he warmly greeted them. It's not easy to meet again. Sit down and have a good rest. We'll split the loot later. We won't split it, Wan Lixiu and Gao Qiaoer said at the same time. They had just been saved. How could they have the face to split the loot? Zhuoxiaoduo took out a large number of pills and healing potions. He placed everything on the ground. We'll listen to you. See if there's anything missing. This doesn't count as loot. Okay. This time, the 2 didn't stand on ceremony. If they continued to stand on ceremony, it would be pretentious. Especially for Wan Lixiu and Zhuoxiaoduo, there was no need to stand on ceremony. Xiao Er, why are you so weak? You can't even defeat these few people? Zhuoxiaoduo was very surprised. Didn't I hear that the 2 of you are the strongest among the new students in Yunduan High School? Wan Lixiu rolled her eyes. Do you think everyone is as abnormal as you? However, Zhuoxiaoduo's question was really hard to answer. Gao Qiaoer smiled bitterly and said, "You can't blame Sister Xiu Air. The selection this time is to select the most outstanding geniuses from the entire 3 continents. Those who are slightly weaker won't be able to enter the list. For example, how many people in our school are at the soul transformation stage? Those who can enter the Hidden Dragon High School, which one of them isn't a top pick? However, in the end, only 400 people can enter the list. As for the rest, any one of them, if placed in other high martial arts schools, would also be a top choice, right? Sister Xiu Air is indeed outstanding in Yunduan High School, but these people, in their own schools, I'm afraid that they are not much weaker than Sister Xiu Air." Gao Qiaoer analyzed, "So, to be able to fight 1 against 3 is already a very impressive level of strength." Zhuoxiaoduo said proudly, "Then how can I fight 1 against 12? Wanli Xiu and Gao Qiaoer were so angry that their chests puffed up. "So this bitch was waiting here? Just to show off?" The 2 girls said in unison, gnashing their teeth, "Because you are bitch. A bitch is invincible in the world." There was definitely no time to tidy up the space ring now. The space was so big, and there were so many treasures waiting to be tidied up. How could there be time to open the space ring? With the cultivation of those brothers, how much could they have gained? It should be known that all the gains in Zhuoxiaoduo's space ring were piled up like mountains and seas. It was more than enough to supply the whole team. Right now, there were only Wanli Xiu and Gao Qiaoer. The 3 of them rested for a while and went down the mountain. Along the way, Gao Qiaoer and Wanli Xiu were so shocked that they were numb. As far as their eyes could see, there was clearly nothing. However, Zhuoxiaoduo started to dig a hole without any warning. And as soon as he dug down, he found a rare heavenly treasure. If they insisted that this was a coincidence, it was really difficult to say that this was a coincidence in this situation. That was why they insisted on saying that it was a coincidence. But then, along the way, there was a piece of messy stone. A few shovels also flattened it, revealing the flat ground, and continued to dig. After digging down, he found another ancient treasure. Zhuoxiaoduo suddenly stopped on the smooth cliff. He dug a hole in a few moves and pulled out a set of heavenly and earthly treasures from the hole that Wanli Xiu and Gao Qiaoer looked as if they were in a dream. How did he find out all this? If Li Chenglong's search for heavenly treasures was based on the theory of physical properties and there were traces to follow, then Zhuoxiaoduo's move was really traceless and amazing. "Zhuo, how did you find out all this?" Wanli Xiu was puzzled and couldn't help but ask. It was a taboo for practitioners to pry into other people's privacy. However, Wanli Xiu and Zhuoxiaoduo were close friends. In addition, she was too suspicious at this time, so she finally couldn't help but ask. "This requires daily accumulation and good observation. I can see that you don't work hard usually." Zhuoxiaoduo pulled a long face and caught Wanli Xiu to teach her a lesson. Chapter 795. Wanli Xiu's eyes widened in confusion. "Have I learned this before?" Zhuoxiaoduo scolded her. "Did you see it just now? There are patterns on the stone outside. The patterns are like a dog's tail. This means that there is something inside. Just now, the stones there looked messy, right? In fact, it is an irregular triangle. You can tell that there is something below. And there, at the lee side, there are 2 dung beetles. Of course, there is something below." Zhuoxiaoduo made up a bunch of nonsense as if it was true. If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. You talk a bunch of nonsense that no one would believe. You are talking nonsense with a serious face. Wanli Xiu rolled her eyes. Gao Qiaoer was still thinking about the possibility of this nonsense. However, for Wanli Xiu, who knew Zhuoxiaoduo better, she didn't even believe in punctuation. "I can't help it if you don't believe me." Zhuoxiaoduo spread his hands. "Maybe it's because of my good character. I just casually dug and there is a heavenly treasure. Hey, Xiuer, don't move." All of a sudden, he was startled and shouted loudly. Wanli Xiu stiffened and didn't move. "What?" Before she finished speaking, Zhuoxiaoduo took out the big shovel again and dug more than 10 meters under Wanli Xiu's feet. Under Wan Lixiu's surprised gaze, he dug out a 3,000-year-old blood-replenishing vine. He threw it over. Here, I see that Xiu is weak now. There must be something good where you are standing. I just casually dug and it is indeed the blood-replenishing vine that you need the most. Here you go. Wan Lixiu's eyes widened. Gao Qiao's eyes widened too. Is this true? Gao Qiao hurriedly asked. Boss, look at what is under my feet. Zuo took a look and said, You are not injured. What can there be under your feet? There is nothing. Gao Qiao, Wan Lixiu, The two women's lips twitched. They were a little skeptical. They didn't believe it at first, but it was dug out right under their eyes. As the saying goes, facts speak louder than words. To dig out what she needed the most right under her feet. Wan Lixiu felt a little dizzy. He was actually doubting his previous accurate judgment. A man's mouth was a scary ghost, but Zuo mouth was even scarier than a ghost's. Zuo laughed so hard that his belly almost burst. He said, Let's go, let's keep going. I feel that you still need another heaven vein vermilion fruit to fully recover. How can we miss out on this opportunity? Heavenly vermilion fruit? Can't miss it? How can it be guided by destiny? Wan Lixiu felt a little dizzy. Come, let's go this way. Zuo led the way. Follow this path down the mountain. You don't have to be so cautious. The heavenly axiom is there for you. If it's yours, it's yours. Your boss will always be your boss. Then, he took the two of them and jumped down the rapid current. In an instant, they fell more than 1,000 feet and landed on a flat ground. At this moment, Wan Lixiu's feet landed on the side of a tree. She was about to continue flying down when suddenly, Don't move. Zuo immediately said, Stand there and don't move. Wan Lixiu immediately became nervous. Is there something? Zuo rolled his eyes. When you fell, your breathing was rapid. It was caused by your internal injuries. So, there must be something nearby that can heal your internal injuries. Wan Lixiu was surprised. Really? Gao Qiao was also dumbfounded. They couldn't really dig out the heaven vein vermilion fruit here, right? Then, the two of them watched as Zuo took out a super big shovel and dug down 400 to 500 feet. Then, he reached out and pulled it out. It's out. Let me see. Damn. Xiu, it's really the heaven vein vermilion fruit you needed the most. And there are exactly 3 of them. One for each of us. Looking at the heaven vein vermilion fruit in Zuo's hand that was shining with a black light and seemed to have stars twinkling in it, Gao Qiao and Wan Lixiu's beautiful eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Oh my god! It's really there? Could it be that Zuo wasn't spouting nonsense? Was there really such a thing? Zuo is really Zuo. Eat it quickly. Chew it together with the blood-replenishing vine. The effect will be better. Zuo said sanctimoniously, It's more important to recover quickly. Wan Lixiu ate it as she was told. Indeed, she quickly recovered and almost fully recovered. This time, the two girls were not surprised at all. As expected, they were naturally duped by Zuo. Zuo realized that he had gotten himself into trouble. The two girls would stop at almost every place they went and stomp on the ground. Boss Zuo, quickly come and see if there are any opportunities down there. The first few times were fine and he was secretly happy. But after a while, Zuo couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. The Heavenly Tao has proof of this. What you're doing is too deliberate. Sigh, my mouth is cheap. Zuo was a little depressed. Trouble comes from careless talk. He only cared about acting tough and wanted to dissipate the fear of the two girls being hunted down. So, he made such a joke, and in the end, he got himself into endless trouble that the 3 of them walked forward happily. Gao Qiao still left signals and arrows along the way. Every once in a while, she would fly into the sky and let out a long whistle, hoping to get a response. Unfortunately, there was no response. The 3 of them sped all the way and soon reached the foot of the mountain. But it was already evening. Let's find a place to rest. Zuo quickly dug 2 big stone caves at the mountain pass. He gave one to Wan Lixiu and Gao Qiao, and the other to himself. Right at the mountain pass? Gao Qiao was puzzled. Wasn't the target too obvious? It's okay. This is the only way. Duo smiled. No matter who comes from here, they won't miss this place. Gao Qiao suddenly felt a toothache. This sentence, no matter who comes from here, seemed to have a deep meaning and lingered in her mind. After the arrangements were made, Duo personally flew into the sky and let out a long whistle. Still, there was no response for a long time. He then called everyone back to the cave to rest. After Duo entered the cave, he immediately went into the Tower of Emptiness to cultivate. Inside the Tower of Emptiness, there was a lot of time, and he had plenty of time to do anything. In the other cave, the two girls took out their camping equipment and tidied up their resting place comfortably. Then they huddled in a tent to talk. Why do I still feel like we've been fooled? Gao Qiao said. It can't be, right? Wanli Xiu was more honest. She said, Zhou really dug it out from under my feet. How can this be faked? Even if Zhou can clone himself, he can't create treasures out of nothing. The mountain walls and the ground are in perfect condition. That's not what I mean. I'm not saying that he's prepared something good in advance. But think about it carefully. No matter where we go, Boss will lead the way. He will take us wherever he wants us to go. As long as he has the intention, you'll stand wherever he wants you to stand. The more Gao Qiao thought about it, the more she felt that she had been fooled. She couldn't help but feel depressed. It's fine that Wanli Xiu was fooled, but why am I fooled too? What do you think Boss wants to do by arranging a campsite here? Is there something fishy about it? He wants to rob us. Wanli Xiu didn't know much about Duo. She said directly without thinking, if the people coming up tonight are from our side and the Astral Souls continent, it's fine. But if they are from the Umno Alliance or the Dao League, Gao Qiao said, I think so too. If they are from the Dao League, it's fine. They will rob money and not kill. But if they are from the Umno Alliance, I don't think anyone will survive. Wanli Xiu sighed. Gao Qiao also nodded. From the moment Duo killed those 12 people, the two women could feel it. Xiaoduo's murderous aura was soaring. It was obvious that he had made up his mind. That was the truth. What the Flood Witch's warning? Fuck you. I will kill every member of the Wizard Alliance that I see. Anyway, the King of Zhuolu said that he would help me. Who am I afraid of? Moreover, as long as I silence all of them, how can you accuse me of killing them? Do you think that just because you, the great flood sorcerer, claim to be #1 in the world, your words are law? Have you forgotten that we, the human clan, also have sky-inspecting ministers? That mighty figure with the surname Zhuo might even be my relative. Of course, he is also my relative. Do you dare to act rashly? Late at night, Duo, who had been cultivating in the Tower of Annihilation for half a month, came out. The night wind was cold. Why hasn't anyone passed by here yet? Just as he was thinking, he heard a whooshing sound in front of him. Duo was energized. He shouted loudly, Which continent are you from? The person flying in the distance was also shocked. He did not expect there to be people here. He asked subconsciously, Which continent are you from? Duo said naively, I am from the Astral Souls continent. I am alone. I haven't found a team yet. You are from the Astral Souls continent, right? Are you from the Astral Souls continent? His voice seemed to be full of nervousness. From the Astral Souls continent? Alone? Someone suddenly laughed and said, You are from the High Martial Arts Academy, right? Other than those students and martial artists, the others would not be so naive. Duo was overjoyed. You too? Ah. A few people on the opposite side laughed heartily. Then, 6 or 7 people landed in front of Duo. These people's attire was somewhat retro. All of them were wearing long robes. The leader was a young man with a beard. He looked at Duo mockingly. Alone? People from the Astral Souls continent? Duo's face relaxed. So it's the senior brothers from the Dao Alliance. Our 2 alliances are of the same breadth and branch. We are one family. We should work together. But who is family with you? Who wants to work together with you? The man from the Dao League scolded, Astral Souls brat. hand over the space ring and kill yourself to atone for your sins. Zuoxiao Duo panicked. The Tao League and Astral Souls have always been on good terms. We work together to fight against the UMNO Alliance. How can we not be family? How can you do this? Oh no. Chapter 796. Zuoxiao Duo screamed at the top of his lungs, as if he was terrified. On the other side of the cave, Wanli Xiu and Gao Qiao were laughing so hard that they were shaking. This bitch was really bitchy. Not only did he want to kill, but he also wanted to create all kinds of reasons and opportunities so that he could stand on the moral high ground. Even if someone wanted to settle accounts with him afterwards, he would have something to say and be completely reasonable. Who's with you? Little bitch, you're about to die in front of your eyes, and you still want to talk nonsense? The 6 people in front of him laughed evilly as they approached. Zuoxiao Duo stepped back slowly, his face full of panic, and said, Don't. He screamed like a girl who was being forced by a pervert, desolate and helpless. How about, senior brothers, I have some knowledge of the similitude method, and I can tell your fortune. Let's get to know each other. I'm known as the Iron-Mouthed Divine Fortune Teller. Zuoxiao Duo was still in a state of panic. Then he immediately said in rapid succession, Your physiognomy. Why is it so bad? Must be careful. Why is there such a dense bloody calamity, immeasurable deity? Nonsense. It's true, there's really a bloody disaster. There's no door to fortune or misfortune. You're causing trouble for yourself, and your words and actions invite disaster. Fate will appear. Zuoxiao Duo looked at him seriously, as if he was desperately trying to find a reason for himself to live. Look at your face, it's full of black gas, and there's a murderous aura between your eyebrows. The bloody disaster is already in front of you, and it's only a moment away. Little bitch, how dare you scare us? The bearded young man stepped forward fiercely and stretched out his hand to grab him. See if I don't kill you? Then, with a soft sound, the bearded man's arm fell to the ground, and blood spurted out wildly. The young man was even stunned for a moment, and then he suddenly screamed, Little bitch, how dare you plot against me? Zuoxiao's face became serious, and he stepped forward, slapping him hard in the face. First, he broke his teeth, and then he grabbed the young man's neck and lifted him up. I said that you'll have a bloody disaster, and it's true. Do you believe me now? The young man was choked to the point where his blood flow was obstructed. Unable to speak, he kicked his legs wildly. The other 5 drew their swords at the same time. Put him down. Each and every one of you will face a bloody calamity. Do you believe me now? Bullshit. Release him. Sword light flashed. A moment later, all 6 of them were lying on the ground with broken limbs. Bloody calamity, do you believe me now? If you believe me, I'll let you live. I believe you. Hand over all your spatial rings. Put them over there. That's all? Do you still have any private stashes? No more, no more. Are you really willing to let us live? Zuoxiao Duo said righteously, I said that I'll let you live, so I'll definitely let you live. A real man keeps his word. Thank you. I will repay this kindness in the future. You're welcome. Zuoxiao Duo waved his long sword and said, As long as you can escape from my sword, I'll let you live. I'll give you a clear price for this. I won't cheat you. I can't watch or listen anymore. Gao Qiao and Wanli Xiu were laughing so hard that their stomachs hurt. From the beginning to the end, the 2 women did not intervene in this matter. Zuoxiao Duo settled everything by himself. Carrying the spoils of war, he slowly returned to his cave. The 6 corpses had also been cleaned up by him. The mountain breeze blew, and the smell of blood quickly drifted away. Tell me, did Boss Sua plan to silence him from the very beginning? No, how could such a thing happen? They were the ones who wanted to kill me first. I was just defending myself. It's legitimate defense, understand? Gao Qiao said, Boss is indeed not a bloodthirsty person. He showed weakness at the beginning to give the other party a chance. If the Tao League disciples were willing to let him go, he wouldn't have snatched their things. He would have let them go. His showing of weakness made the enemy think that they could bully him easily. From a certain point of view, it was also luring the enemy to have evil thoughts. But if these people didn't have evil thoughts, they wouldn't have been lured. Gao Qiao understood very well. She said, "Boss said it well. There's no door to misfortune, only people call for it." This sentence is not false at all. Boss is guarding the pass alone here. It's a fatal crisis, but he's also a wonderful teammate. If they had good thoughts, they would have received boss's protection. Helping them a few times is nothing. But if they had evil thoughts, it would have led to a fatal disaster. So, life or death, it's actually their own choice. Gao Qiao sighed faintly. In front of Zhou, I've really verified a sentence. What sentence? Good will be rewarded with good, evil will be punished with evil. Gao Qiao said, he's this kind of person. If you treat him with kindness, he'll repay you with kindness. But if you show him evil thoughts, he'll be 10,000 times more evil than you in an instant. But whatever he does as he pleases. He only wants his own thoughts to be clear. In other words, as long as he feels in his heart that he can do something, he'll do it immediately. After he's done, he'll feel very good. He only pursues this. Gao Qiao sighed. She really envied him. This kind of person lived the most unscrupulously. Wan Lixiu nodded silently. Yes, Zhou Xiaoduo was this kind of person. All his words and actions were determined by his opponent. It was up to his opponent to decide his own life and death. When others showed their evil intentions to him, Zhou Xiaoduo would return with even greater evil intentions. He would feel more at ease. It's not that I didn't give you a chance. It's just that you didn't want to give me a chance. So why should I give you a chance? Requite evil with good, how should I requite good? Requite good for good, requite evil with justice. It wasn't a coincidence or not. They hadn't met anyone in the trial before, but for the entire second half of the night, 2 groups of people passed by the mountain pass. The second group was 3 people from the UMNO alliance. When they saw Zhou Xiaoduo alone here, they didn't say anything and directly killed him. Even when Zhou Xiaoduo wanted to read their fortune, he didn't have the chance to speak. He just flew into a rage and directly killed them. Gao Qiao and Wan Lixiu seized the time to sleep and rest to recover their bodily functions. They didn't even come out. Early in the morning, the mountain pass was still as clean as ever. There was not even a speck of dust on it, as if it had been cleaned by someone. The 3 of them went on the road again. Waiting for an entire night was already the limit. They flew all the way for thousands of miles. Along the way they passed 3 mountain peaks. Zhou Xiaoduo once again collected a lot of spiritual herbs. What made Gao Qiao and Wan Lixiu feel even more strange was that Zhou Xiaoduo never took the usual road. Although there were also shrubs and other things growing on the flat ground, it was still much easier to walk on than the mountain forest. However, Zhou Xiaoduo never walked. Along the way, he basically chose to go through the mountain forest. Boss, are you looking for herbs? Why don't you take the normal road? Yes, I'm looking for herbs. I'm not stupid. There's no need for me to not take the good road. Of course, Zhou Xiaoduo had to walk on such terrain because only in places with undulating mountain ranges could there be earth veins. Xiao Long had to wander around such a place, so Zhou Xiaoduo naturally followed him. And the richer Xiao Long's harvest was, the richer Zhou Xiaoduo's harvest was. Where there were earth veins, the earth qi would be much richer than on flat ground. And where the earth qi was rich, it meant that there would be heavenly materials and earthly treasures. This was an absolute theorem. As Zhou Xiaoduo gained more and more, Wan Lixiu and Gao Qiao naturally gained more and more, and their wealth skyrocketed. What was that saying again? Even a little bit of dregs dropped from between the fingers was worth a lot. Moreover, how could Zhou Xiaoduo only give the 2 girls some dregs? And when encountering demonic beasts, as long as they weren't too fierce, Zhou Xiaoduo would command the 2 girls to fight them. How dare you demonic beasts? Look at my army of women. Therefore, the army of women with only 2 people rushed up. Only when the army of women couldn't defeat them, Zhou would take action and end the battle. They swept all the way. After calculating the distance, Gao Qiao smacked her lips. Sister Xiu, do you feel it? All the places boss passed by were simply, on average, they dug 300 meters underground. It's not just the 1 meter higher sky, it's at least 900 feet. Wan Lixio sighed. There's nothing left. It's really too clean. After us, the geniuses who enter this area may have an easier time than traveling. As they were talking, they saw countless birds suddenly rushing up to the sky from the forest in the distance, flying away in panic. The scale was huge. The three of them were stunned for a moment and looked in that direction. They saw smoke and dust billowing up to the sky. There seemed to be more than 20 small black dots shooting out from the forest and running toward them crazily. After that, hundreds. No, thousands. No, tens of thousands. No, tens of thousands. No, tens of thousands. Like a tide of violent black dots, madly rushing out without end. A long howl rang out. Even though it came from far away, it could be heard clearly here. Zuoxiao Duo gloated. I don't know where these guys came from, but they provoked a pack of wolves. Haha, it's not an ordinary pack of wolves. Wan Lixio was worried. I don't know if there are any of our people in there. I still can't see where they came from. If there aren't any of our people. Damn. Isn't that Long Yusheng? Isn't this too much of a coincidence? Zuoxiao Duo slapped his thigh in shock. If there weren't any of his own people, Zuoxiao Duo definitely didn't want to get involved in this muddy water. Going against such a huge pack of wolves was not only risky, but also had little to gain. It was not in line with Zuoxiao's plan of benefits. When Wan Lixio heard Long Yusheng's name, she immediately rushed out. Dorush. Zuoxiao Duo jumped down and held Wan Lixio down. It's useless for you to go. I'll go. You and Shower will be in charge of receiving them. Also, treat their injuries. I think that there are all kinds of martial arts experts in this batch. Basically, they are all our people. We have to help them. However, we have to think of a strategy to help them. Brute force won't do. Chapter 797. After saying that, Zuoxiao Duo threw down a big bag of medicine. Then, Zuoxiao Duo rushed up to the sky and turned into a brilliant light with his sword. He shouted, "Run this way." Now they could see clearly that Long Yusheng was not the only one who was rushing over. Zhou Yunqing, Meng Zhangjun, Hao Han, Pai Yibao and the others were all there. There were also more than a dozen students and martial artists from Yunduan High School. Everyone was flying as if their lives depended on it. Behind them, the tide-like pack of wolves were also flying through the air, chasing after them relentlessly. It turned out to be a pack of demonic wolves that were at least at the nascent soul stage. If the number of demonic wolves at this level was not particularly large, even if Long Yusheng and the others joined forces, the threat would only be regarded as ordinary. But now, the number of the opponents was too much. Just now, there were tens of thousands of giant wolves, which was far from what Long Yusheng, Zhou Yunqing and the others could deal with. Among the running crowd, Meng Zhangjun was carrying a bloody person on his back. It was Zhen Piapiao. She was unconscious on his back with her eyes closed. Meng Zhangjun stimulated his primordial qi and ran desperately. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound. It was Zuoxiao Duo who came to help. Everyone was overjoyed. Class monitor Zua. Help. You guys continue to rush. Wan Lixio is waiting for you in front. I will block the wolves for a while. Go. Zuoxiao Duo rode the sword light and brushed past the crowd. The sword light flashed like lightning. As soon as it touched the three giant wolves, it had already divided them into 6 pieces. Then, little white light sprinkled out like a rainstorm. Zuoxiao Duo had been practicing hidden weapons for such a long time. Today, he finally made a fortune. Puff puff puff. Countless white jade gourds, white jade flying daggers, and other things. Following the shortest trajectory, they accurately shot into the eyes of the giant wolves. The giant wolves howled miserably as they fell down. Although this pack of giant wolves had at least the strength of the nascent soul realm, and there was no lack of the cloud transformation realm, their combined strength was only at the level of the ordinary nascent soul realm. With Zuoxiao's current strength, it was enough to kill them in seconds. This also caused the white jade concealed weapon mixed with Zhuoxiaoduo's true essence and qi to be able to kill the giant wolves in seconds as long as it hit the vital part of the giant wolves. Looking from afar, Zhuoxiaoduo looked like an indestructible dam in the sky. The sword light in his hand formed an absolute defense. Even if there were a large number of demon wolves in front of him, they could not advance any further after coming into contact with Zhuoxiaoduo's sturdy dam. They could only fall down like dumplings. Zhuoxiaoduo's roar shook the sky. The sword in his hand turned into a dense light screen, connecting the sky and the earth. From afar, from his hand, there were waves of white sword light surging out. Each wave was higher than the previous one, colliding with the black mass of the demon wolves. Soft water sword, mountain flood sword, river sword, pugilistic sword, river sea sky sword, drizzle sword, rain sword, rainstorm sword. All kinds of exquisite sword techniques that came from his godfather matched perfectly with the footwork that his father taught him. The concealed weapons in his hand were also endless. One by one they were thrown out. With such a large number of demon wolves, it would be a waste to forcefully control them. He directly threw them to the north and south. There was no need to deliberately aim, he just needed to hit. As long as the slender white light flowed, the demon wolves would howl continuously. At least a dozen wolves would fall at a time. The warriors who had just escaped from danger and were beginning to heal under the care of Wanli Xiu and Gao Qiao were panting and taking healing medicine. Some of the students from Yunduan High Martial Arts University looked at the figure in the sky with a shocked expression. They clicked their tongues and sucked in a breath of cold air. Who is this? How can he be so powerful? Long Yusheng panted and said proudly, "This is my boss. This is our boss." This sentence was said by Meng Zhongjun almost at the same time as Long Yusheng. They could not help but smile at each other. At this moment, Wanli Xiu and Gao Qiao had already made a cave nearby and carried Zhen Piapiao inside to treat her injuries. The other male warriors were treating her injuries on the spot. Medicine was sprinkled on the wounds, causing waves of ghostly wails and wolf howls. Zhou Yunqing panted and bandaged his injured thigh. His right thigh was almost bitten off by a demon cloud wolf. His face was twisted. What's going on? Zhou Yunqing was still in a daze. He had just arrived with a group of juniors from Yunduan High Martial Arts and saw these guys being besieged by huge wolves. Naturally, he went up to help without saying anything. At first, it was fine. They almost had the situation under control. He did not expect that the more they fought, the more wolves there were. In the end, they were all over the mountains and plains, surging over like the tide of the sea. Such a pack of demon wolves, and all of them are high level. How could so many of them gather for no reason? Cough cough. Long Yusheng coughed and said awkwardly, "There was a rainbow tri-leaf orchid under a wolf's den on the cliff. I was with Meng Zhongjun and the others." Zhen Piapiao was moved when she saw it. Although this rainbow tri-leaf orchid is not very useful for cultivation, it is especially good for young girls' skin. And it was big enough. It looked like it was enough for 10 or 20 girls to use. So we took actions. But there was a female wolf in the wolf's den? Zhou Yunqing sighed. There were also a few wolf pups. We killed them quickly and took the rainbow tri-leaf orchid. But before the female wolf died, it leaned on the ground and howled desperately. We knew something was wrong and rushed out. We thought that we would be fine after we rushed out of the mountain. But as we rushed out, more and more wolves appeared. In the end, we even met you guys. Long Yusheng smiled bitterly. Then we ran for our lives together. Zhou Yunqing was speechless. You guys dared to touch a wolf's den guarded by a female wolf, especially when there were wolf pups inside. That was an irreconcilable feud with the wolf pack. Everyone hurry up and heal. Those who have recovered their combat strength, go and help Zhuoxiaoduo. Zhou Yunqing sighed. There are too many wolves. With just Zhuoxiaoduo alone, it's impossible to maintain the situation for too long. I think that the wolf king of this pack is about to arrive. In the clouds in the distance, a giant wolf the size of a few houses stood majestically high in the sky. It howled from time to time, commanding the battle here. Even further away, there were still countless giant wolves rushing over like a wave of greenish-black waves. Long Yusheng stuffed a pill into his mouth and washed it down with a bottle of life water. He turned his head to look and panted. Zhua should be fine. Look at him fighting in full swing and he still has energy left. Even a wolf can't rush over, so he should be fine for now. Let's focus on healing our injuries first. Hurry up and recover. From the looks of it, the wolf pack won't retreat. Wolves are the most vengeful creatures. If we kill their female wolves and pups, I'm afraid that all the wolves within a 10,000-mile radius will rush over to take revenge. Moreover, the smell of blood here is so strong. Zhou Yunqing stared at the battle in the sky. Zhou Xiaoduo has restrained the attack of the wolf pack, but we don't know how long he can last in this state. Everyone needs to heal as soon as possible. He thought for a while and said, let's split into 2 groups. Later, Long Yusheng, Meng Zhongjun, and a few of you from Hidden Dragon High School will go up with me. We'll use the fan wing formation to help fight. Replace Zhou Xiaoduo. Even if we can only delay for a few minutes, let Zhou Xiaoduo come down to rest for a while. We'll go up after he has some breathing room. As for you guys, when your condition improves, you'll rush up with Zhou Xiaoduo. Zhou Yunqing had to admit that among the students of Yunduan High School, other than himself, Long Yusheng, and Wan Lixiu, the others really couldn't compare to this group of Hidden Dragon High School students in front of him. Moreover, the gap in strength seemed to be a little big. Even the girl who was seriously injured was still much stronger than the geniuses of Yunduan High School. At the most critical moment, Zhen Piapiao used a desperate method to fight with the Wolf King that suddenly appeared. That was why she was seriously injured. It could be said that if it wasn't for Zhen Piapiao, perhaps none of the people present would have survived except for himself and Long Yusheng. If the 2 of them were to be surrounded by the wolf pack, they still couldn't escape the fate of being completely annihilated. There was no doubt that they would have died. Whenever he thought of that scene, Zhou Yunqing still felt inexplicably shocked. That was a girl. At that moment, she resolutely stepped forward bravely and fought with her life. Using her weak body, she clearly knew that she was no match for the wolf in front of her. She fought to the death. She had won 5 seconds for everyone to retreat. If it wasn't for those 5 precious seconds, the consequences would have been unimaginable. High up in the sky, Zhou Xiaoduo shouted loudly, "You don't have to worry about me. Focus on healing your injuries." More than 10 different sword techniques seemed to have become one with him. If he wanted to be soft, he would be soft. If he wanted to be hard, he would be hard. He could bend and stretch, advance and retreat as he wished. He could suddenly attack the enemy's den and advance courageously. He could also retreat in an instant. He could reach the climax in an instant with dazzling brilliance. He could also shrink into a ball in an instant and defend himself tightly. Not only was he able to freely use his sword techniques, but he also shot out countless jade-colored hidden weapons in waves. Although the wolf pack was large in number, they couldn't advance as they were blocked by him alone. Under the command of the Wolf King, the pack of wolves formed a huge fan shape in the sky. They moved in unison from all directions and attacked Zhou Xiaoduo, who was in the middle of the encirclement. As for the wolves on both sides, they were looking for an opportunity to rush down. Zhou Xiaoduo shouted and changed his moves again. Suddenly, the spirit cat sword danced in the air at an extremely fast speed. Once again, the spirit cat sword performed the body and sword as one technique. In a flash, from east to west, from west to east, all the giant wolves that tried to break through the spirit cat sword from both sides were cut into halves by the spirit cat sword. Countless internal organs, severed limbs, and a large amount of blood rained down. The wolf pack came with the wind and was surrounded by a strong gust of wind. Zhou Xiaoduo's position was against the wind. This situation made him very unhappy, because in this situation, the earth hair dryer was useless. Chapter 798. If not, as long as he took out the earth hair dryer, he could probably turn these giant wolves into ashes in an instant. You guys find a big cave. Hide in it. Remember to leave someone to guard the entrance. Zhou Xiaoduo shouted in the air. Long Yusheng was the first to react and hurriedly led everyone to move. High up in the sky, Zhuoxiao Duo roared once again, and the sword light flashed violently. It actually rushed into the dense pack of wolves, and like a white light, it rushed straight into the pack of wolves, blocking everyone's line of sight. Immediately, he changed the sword into a hammer and the two big hammers attacked. In a flash, he fiercely hammered 3,000 times. After a fierce attack, he wantonly consumed the opponent's strength. Then, he changed the hammer into a sword and used the move of body and sword as one to rush out quickly. The people below who were working hard to carve out a hole could only hear a series of miserable howls in the air, one after the other. Everyone couldn't help but look up. High up in the sky, the other end of the wolf pack spread out like a bomb, revealing a large area of the sky in the middle. Everyone estimated that there were at least more than 1,000 giant wolves falling from the sky like dead meat. Boom boom boom, the ground roared. Then, a dazzling sword light rushed out from the wolf pack like a stream of light. It was so fast that the space trembled and distorted. In a flash, it went to the front of the wolf pack. The sword light flashed again and again, and 4 or 5 giant wolves were beheaded and fell to the ground. What's going on? A student in Yunduan High Martial Arts instinctively felt trembling. What kind of attack was that? It actually killed thousands of giant wolves at once? Isn't this the nascent soul training area? Doesn't that mean that the student fighting above is actually nascent soul? Is he a nascent soul cultivator like me? But from what he knew, even a cloud transformation peak cultivator would not be able to do this, right? In my place of birth, even in Yunduan High Martial Arts, I was regarded as the best of the best. But now, it seems that I'm just a frog in a well who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. What's your boss's cultivation? Someone asked Long Yusheng, hoping for a different answer. He must be at the nascent soul transformation stage. Long Yusheng looked at the other party in surprise. This is the nascent soul transformation training area. Would he be able to come here if he had a different cultivation? It was really the nascent soul transformation. All the students of Yunduan High Martial Arts High School felt as if their world had shattered. If he's at the nascent soul transformation stage, then what are we? What was this? He was able to kill thousands of nascent soul and cloud transformation realm wolf demons in one strike. While we were having a hard time dealing with 2 of them, doesn't that mean that we can't even block a casual strike from him? What the fuck? They were actually in the same realm. Could it be that I, your father, am practicing fake martial arts? Now, this nascent soul student on the ground had already killed more than 6,000 giant wolves, right? The ground beneath him was completely covered. Blood gushed out from the ground, and the sound of flowing blood could actually be heard. The so-called rivers of blood were nothing more than this, right? Also, didn't he feel tired at all? Especially after using such a terrifying move just now, didn't he feel that he was running out of energy? Was he still human? Bang bang, bang. Another 20 or so wolf corpses fell down. They didn't seem to have any wounds on their bodies, but they were bleeding from their 7 orifices. This was just the beginning. In the following period of time, hundreds of huge wolves fell down one after another. They were all like this. There weren't any wounds, only bleeding from their 7 orifices. Then, as the sword light flashed like a waterfall, their heads began to fall from their bodies. A earth-shattering wolf howl suddenly sounded in the air. The giant wolves that were still charging forward like a tide suddenly retreated in an orderly manner. They were pushed all the way to the sky hundreds of meters away and stood in formation with the wind. The ferocious eyes of the giant wolves were unusually complicated as they looked at the young man in front of them who was covered in blood but didn't have any of their own blood on him. Too strong. Really too strong. The eyes of the wolf demons were already filled with uncontrollable fear. They even felt that this young man could continue fighting like this forever and never get tired. He could fight until the end of time, or perhaps he could wipe out all of their wolves. The wind blew. A huge wolf king descended from the sky and landed at the forefront of the wolf pack. A pair of eyes that seemed to be burning with endless willow, the wisps focused on Zhuoxiao Duo. A wave of spiritual energy vibrated. For you. That was the meaning expressed by the strong spiritual energy. Zhuxiaoduo's heart trembled. This Wolf King. I don't seem to be able to defeat it. He took a deep breath and replied with spiritual energy vibrations, it's just an experience. Why do you have to force it? The Wolf King sneered, my descendants can't die in vain. Zhuxiaoduo's spiritual energy vibrated, but I look at your descendants. Today, each of them will face a bloody disaster. Instead of seeking fortune and avoiding calamity, they are running toward death. What can I do? What? The Wolf King was confused. It couldn't understand this sentence at all. What did it mean? What bloody disaster? What did it mean? Zhuxiaoduo sighed and felt inexplicably depressed. It seemed that it wouldn't work. How good would it be if he could read the fortune of these wolves? With the number of wolves in this pack, even if there was a big discount, he still had to give it to his grandma. Damn, I can only read the fortune of people now, but I can't read the fortune of wolves. If I forcibly say that these wolves will face a bloody disaster, the luck points won't be given out, right? Let's fight. The Wolf King's spiritual energy vibrated in the void. Its huge body was in a fighting posture. Zhuxiaoduo rolled his eyes, okay? Suddenly, his body rose into the air. Taking advantage of this calm period, he took out long strips of cloth from the space ring and connected them one by one. His spiritual energy vibrated, Wolf King, wait for my weapon, Long Whip. The Wolf King's eyes were full of contempt. Long Whip? You're so soft and fluffy? What's the use of it? I'll wait for you. Zhuxiaoduo quickly connected the long whips that was hundreds of feet long. Suddenly, he waved it in the air. With a soft sound, a whirlwind suddenly formed. A whirl. The Wolf King was about to rush forward. Wait, I'm not ready yet. Zhuxiaoduo's spiritual energy vibrated. In front of all his subjects, how could the Wolf King lose his king's demeanor? He stopped again and stood proudly. I'm just waiting for you to be ready. What do I have to be afraid of? On the other side, Zhuxiaoduo continued to wave his long streamer. The wind whistled and suppressed the oncoming tailwind. All of them were pushed back, and the wind was flowing. The sound of the wind was shrill. He actually artificially created a tailwind environment for himself. The increasingly violent hurricane blew the fur of countless giant wolves in the air. It was like a whirlwind storm in the sea. The wolf fur formed ripples. The sound of the wind was getting louder. The group of students below were puzzled. What was going on? Even Long Yuxing, Wan Lixiu, and Gao Qiao, who thought that they were very familiar with Zhuxiaoduo, were also confused. They had never seen Zhui use such a skill. What was he doing? Finally, Zhuxiaoduo's streamer suddenly moved forward. The unprecedentedly violent hurricane blew strongly. At this moment, the sky was gloomy, the earth was miserable, and the sun and moon were dim. Begin! Before Zhuxiaoduo's voice died away, he had already taken out the earth hairdryer and sprayed it 3 times in a row. Then he immediately put it away and retreated quickly. The streamer continued to wave, continuing to create strong winds that blew toward the opposite side. He had wanted to use this thing for a long time, but he didn't have the chance to do so because of the fierce battle. Now that the Wolf King actually wanted to show off his kingly demeanor, he would give it some wind. Poison. Beware. When the Wolf King heard the start, it howled toward the sky and immediately moved. Its body was as fast as lightning, and it charged forward fiercely. It was just that. When it pounced over, it seemed to have automatically pounced into the black smoke that Zhuxiaoduo had just released. This made Zhuxiaoduo a little speechless. He didn't know if it was a coincidence or not. Anyway, this guy was too cooperative, and his luck was too good. He rushed in blindly at the first moment. That the strong wind rolled up the black smoke, and in an instant, it filled the entire wolf pack. The next moment, something shocking had happened. First, the Wolf King let out an earth-shattering howl, and its body, which was invaded by the black smoke, trembled rapidly. Then not only a few moments had passed, and the gigantic body slowly fell to the ground. At first, it was still twitching and struggling, but after a few breaths, it stopped struggling. Halfway through the fall, the hair on its body began to melt and disappear, and its flesh was also rapidly decaying and disappearing. when it completely fell to the ground. Only a few pitch-black bones were left. And these bones were still melting. Yes, even the inner core had melted. As for the tens of thousands of soldiers behind the Wolf King, after being swept by this strange black smoke, they all began to fall to the ground without exception in less than 10 breaths of time. All the giant wolves had turned into black ashes before they even landed on the ground. As Xiaoduo continued to create strong winds without sparing any effort, he flew backwards with a whoosh. Everywhere the black smoke passed, there was no exception. A large area was blackened and decayed, and then the entire forest rotted. The area became larger and larger, and finally, at a certain point in time, it finally stopped. But looking from the other side, the space within a radius of several hundred miles was filled with darkness. Yes, it was a pitch-black flat land. All the trees and vegetation on the flat ground had disappeared. The huge wolf army of more than 40 to 50,000 had all disappeared. The ground was pitch black. Everyone was dumbfounded. Chapter 799. Xiaoduo was still creating strong winds in the air. He didn't dare to be careless. After all, he was actually in the limelight. Once he stopped creating the wind, he would definitely be attacked. Who knew if there were any remnants of the earth hairdryer left in the air below? All the students were dumbfounded. Their eyes and mouths were wide open as they stared at the scene in front of them blankly. All of them felt that their minds were blank. Their eyes were filled with disbelief and disbelief. They had completely lost the ability to think. After a long time, gulp, a student from Yunduan High School swallowed a mouthful of saliva unconsciously. He only felt that his throat was so dry that it was about to catch fire. What is this? Demonic technique? How can it be so abnormal? Long Yuxing, Meng Zhongjun, and the others were also dumbfounded. What kind of secret technique was this? Or rather, what kind of poison was this? How could it be so abnormal? That was a terrifying thing that could poison any living being within a radius of several hundred li. The Wolf King was so huge, and so many wolves were unable to resist it. Yet, in the end, not even a corpse was left behind. Also, many towering trees on the ground were also corroded into ashes under the attack of the black smoke. This was simply a dream. The wind in the air was still blowing. Xiaoduo had already landed on the ground. He looked like he was in a lot of trouble as he wiped off his sweat. Damn, what the hell is going on? How did we attract so many wolves? I'm so tired. Long Yuxing, I only saved your wife for 2 days and you're thanking me with this? You're repaying kindness with evil. You have to give me an explanation, you have to. Long Yuxing and the others opened their mouths and stared at him dumbfounded. Until Xiaoduo came over to speak, everyone still hadn't recovered from the shock. The scene just now was really terrifying to the extreme. It was so terrifying that everyone was speechless and unable to respond. Xiaoduo gently pushed Long Yuxing. What's wrong? Are you stupid? Do you think you can avoid an explanation by pretending to be stupid? Long Yuxing fell to the ground with a pale face. Boss, just now. What happened? Can you stop scaring me? Not only him, but Zhou Yunqing and the others also pricked up their ears. Fuck, you dare to blackmail me? Don't you know that I'm an expert in scamming? Are you talking about black smoke? Xiaoduo replied with a distressed expression. In the mountain range over there is a cave in the ruins, and there is a bottle of this poisonous smoke inside. I don't know who left it behind, but I tried it once before, and the effect was pretty good. I originally wanted to go to the battlefield to make a fortune, but in the end, you guys brought over so many wolves, and I had no choice but to use it. Now, it's all gone in an instant. What a waste of such good stuff. If it was placed on the battlefield, how many military merits would I gain? Xiaoduo sighed. I'm telling you, kid, you have to pay for my loss. If you don't, I'll go to your wife and ask her to pay for it. Long Yuxing's face turned red and white. My wife can compensate, but she can't accompany. Xiaoduo's face darkened. Fuck off. Everyone was enlightened. So that's why. We've never seen such a terrible thing in our lives. And there's no record of it, so it was found here. This must be an evil thing created by the ancestors of the monster race. It's so vicious, or else it's the former master of the continent that, however, Zhuoxiaoduo had saved their lives, and they had caused him to lose such a powerful treasure. They really felt guilty. Especially Long Yuxing and Wan Lixio. They didn't feel that Zhuoxiaoduo was blackmailing them this time, but they really felt that they owed him. If such a good thing was brought to the battlefield. Sigh, what a waste, what a waste. Zhuo wasted it, Zhuoxiaoduo sighed sadly. He looked at the densely packed wolf corpses on the ground in front of him and said gloomily, the wolf meat isn't delicious. I don't know if these inner cores and wolf skins can make up for my loss. Sigh, this time it's really such a good opportunity, and it's wasted. Zhou Yunqing stood up and said, Brother Zhuo, don't worry. We won't let you suffer for nothing. Come, students, let's work together. We'll peel off the inner cores and wolf skins of these demon wolves and give them to squad leaders as compensation. Squad leaders, if we get anything in the future, we'll definitely repay you for saving our lives today. Zhuoxiaoduo frowned. What are you doing? How can you give me all these inner cores and wolf skins? This is the result of everyone's hard work. This is the result of our joint efforts. How can you give it all to me? This won't do. I was just joking. I didn't mean it that way. Zhou Yunqing held his hand. Brother Zhuo, you're welcome. If it weren't for you, we would have been eaten by the wolves. At the very least, there are so many wolves here. 99% of them were killed by you. How can we accept it? You must accept it. Brother Zhuo. Don't make us feel even more guilty and sad, Zhou Yunqing said. This isn't good, is it? Zhuoxiaoduo looked like he was in a difficult position. What's not good about it? This is what we should do. Zhou Yunqing looked at his classmates. Don't you think so? Exactly. These can't repay brothers was kindness at all. Ayaya. Zhuoxiaoduo looked embarrassed. He scratched his head and said honestly, we're all good classmates, good friends, and good brothers. You don't have to be so formal. All right, I'll accept it. If any of you need it, feel free to ask me for it. Thank you, Brother Zhuo. You're welcome. Come, let's work together. The sooner we finish, the better. After that, Zhou Yunqing led his people to work. Zhuo is awesome. Long Yuxing gave him a thumbs up with a flattering look. Zhuoxiaoduo glanced at him and said, Don't give me that. When we were outside, who was the one who said he wanted to spar with me? I think now is a good time. When you're better, we can spar. You can ask Xiao Air to help you. I definitely won't mind. But I mind. Wait, Hook was the one who said he wanted to spar with you? It wasn't me. Long Yuxing shook his head like a rattle drum. I didn't say that. I definitely didn't say that. It was you Moyan who said that. Didn't say that? Really didn't say that. Did I hear wrongly? Boss, you must have heard wrongly. I've always been loyal to you. Why would I challenge your authority? Long Yuxing rubbed Zhuoxiaoduo's shoulders attentively. Boss, you've worked hard. Let me give you a massage. Well, this is not bad. Left, a little to the left, use some strength. Yes, to the right, up, down. Zhuoxiaoduo contentedly twisted his neck and enjoyed the service from someone. Squad leader Zhuo. Meng Zhongjun walked over anxiously. Go in and see Pia Piao. She's badly injured. Wan Lixio and Gao Qiao carried Jin Pia Piao into the cave and hadn't come out yet. Okay. Zhuoxiaoduo stood up with a start. Just now, everyone was whispering about what happened this time. They were full of admiration for Zhen Pia Piao. Zhuoxiaoduo was also a little emotional. He didn't expect this usually delicate girl to suddenly show such a strong side today. Sure enough, if you didn't encounter something, you wouldn't be able to force out your hidden side. However, Wan Lixio and Gao Qiao had many elixirs with them. Among them, there was no lack of healing medicines. As long as she was still breathing, there should be a way to save her. Why hadn't she gotten better? Zhuoxiaoduo walked to the entrance of the cave quietly and asked softly, Xiao, can I go in? How's Pia Piao? This was a question he had to ask. After all, the girl was injured. Perhaps there was something inconvenient for men to see. Come in. Wan Lixio's voice was hurried. Zuoxiao Duo stepped in. Meng Zhangjun, Hao Han, and the others waited anxiously at the door. Pia Piao's condition is very bad. Gao Qiao said to Zuoxiao Duo. When she fought with the Wolf King, she consumed 99% of her primordial qi. The remaining force of the impact fell on her body. In addition to losing a lot of blood, the bones in her chest and back were broken into several pieces. Her internal organs were damaged. With the current conditions, there is no way to save her. I have already given her the life potion, but it can only slightly replenish her primordial qi. Her current body can't stop the flow of primordial qi at all. I can't think of a way to save her. Zuoxiao Duo was shocked when he heard this. He looked at Zhen Piapiao, who was lying on the ground and breathing weakly. Her primordial qi was indeed flowing away. Although it was just a glance, Zuoxiao Duo was told that this girl was about to die. Zuoxiao Duo took a deep breath. You two go out first. I will save her with the secret method. Wan Lixio and Gao Qiao were full of trust in Zuoxiao Duo. Hearing this, they walked out without hesitation. Why did you come out? Meng Zhangjun asked anxiously. How is Pia Piao's condition? Her condition is very bad. Squad leaders will use the secret method to save her. Gao Qiao said, don't make noise. We need the quietest environment now. Looking at the chaotic situation of the crowd, Gao Qiao made a prompt decision and sternly stopped them. All of you, shut up. If you disturb squad leaders with treatment and something happens to Pia Piao, will you be satisfied? All of you, sit down. If not, go to work. Get out of here. After a pause, she said, why are only the people from Yunduan working? Do we, the people from Hidden Dragon Sect, just sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor? Why don't you all go to work? She drove everyone away in a domineering manner. Although Meng Zhangjun and Hao Han were worried, they were mercilessly suppressed by Gao Qiao. They had to go to the other side to help. Gao Qiao and Wan Lixio guarded the entrance of the cave with heavy hearts. They sighed in their hearts. In their opinion, Zhen Piapiao's injury was already fatal. There was no way to save her. Today, perhaps they really had to send away a good sister. As they were thinking, footsteps sounded in the cave. Squad leaders were Pia Piao, she. Gao Qiao looked up and asked hurriedly. But halfway through, she suddenly opened her mouth wide. She was dumbfounded. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.